welcome to the Fantasy Fangirls podcast, where two sisters dive deep into beloved fantasy lore, characters, themes, theories, and more.
I'm Lexi, older sister and fantasy lore nerd.
And I'm Nicole, younger sister and romantic at heart.
And today is episode 3 as we deep dive Glow of the Everflame by Penn Cole, covering chapters 16 through 23. But before we begin, please listen closely to our spoiler warning, because all of our episodes have spoilers for all 3 released books in the Kindred's Curse saga. That includes Spark, Glow, and Heat of the Everflame.
We're talking about mating bonds this episode, and if you don't know why that's important, then dear God, please go finish the series. We will be here when you're done.
Next, we of Fantasy Fangirls are adults who say adult things about adult books. I'm sorry, I can't even say this with a straight face today. In other words, this podcast is rated R.
The foot massage scene is here, and if you think you've seen the most feral version of myself, think again. So please be mindful of those little listening ears. Why am I crying? I'm so excited.
Okay, let's wrap this up so that you can get to your foot massage scene, Nicole. We are so excited to see you at upcoming live events. Nicole and I are hosting an Empyrean-themed trivia in Boulder, Colorado on July 10th. It is sold out, but we have a waiting list you can sign up for. We will also be featured guests at Enchanticon in St. Louis, Missouri, August 15th through 17th. The schedule is now out. We are so excited for all of the fun sessions, live show, trivia, all the things that we have going on that weekend.
Then we will be at the Everflame Ball with Penn Cole herself for the first ever Kindred's Curse Saga Ball on August 30th in Castle Rock, Colorado. We will also be back at the Dragon Gauntlet in Boyne City, Michigan, September 12th through 13th.
Then Romantasy BookCon in Orlando, Florida, October 23rd through 25th, where we are interviewing Rebecca Yarros again at Disney World.
Check out our website or the links below for more information to all of these events.
Last thing before we jump into this Glow of the Everflame episode 3, if you love Fantasy Fangirls and want more events, more content, more community, and so much more, please check out Fantasy Fan Club.
We have 3 membership tiers that you can join. Number 1, The Descended, which includes access to our Boppin' Discord. Quick aside, one of my favorite things about this Boppin' Discord is every week we have a channel specifically devoted to that episode that drops that week, so people can chat about the episode. I cannot wait to read the comments around this episode. I'm so excited. It also includes live Q&As from Lexi and I, a book club, exclusive author interviews, community events like trivia, promo codes for live events, plus exclusive designs and 20% off all merch. That is for $6 a month. Or you can join the Royal Family, which includes everything from the Descended level, plus early access to ad-free episodes, our full episode outlines, and special voting privileges. That is for $10 a month. Or you can join the Crown's Council, which includes everything from the previous 2 tiers, plus more behind-the-scenes content, a welcome gift, giveaways, private Discord channel named Kareel. It's the most boppin' place ever. I love it. And your name shouted out on the podcast. That is for $25 a month.
Join the party at fantasyfangirls.com/fan club. The link is also in the show notes. And really and truly, thank you so much for supporting us as we've turned this podcast into our livelihood. It's all because of you.
And now it is time to go to the Corbwois family dinner. But let's be real. More importantly, it's time to get a foot massage from Luther.
To start off every episode, Nicole does us the honor of summarizing this stretch of chapters. So gather round as we consult with our royal advisors to discuss what happens in chapters 16 through 23 of Glow of the Everflame. Take it away, Nicole.
Chapter 16. It's the day of King Ulther's funeral, and it has finally arrived. Having never been to a Descended funeral before, Diem consults with Sarai on what should she wear. While Sarai is giddy for a shining, glittering number that might as well have been the inspiration for Taylor Swift's album Red, Diem decides that Sarai has no idea what she's trilling about and chooses to wear a modest black dress instead. Flying over to the funeral on Sarai, Diem realizes that she's made a grave miscalculation. Everyone is decked in head to toe red. Oh dear. Nothing a little squeezing into a seat nestled snugly in a Luther and Diem sandwich can't fix. After reassuring a very distraught Eleanor that she's not to blame for her choice of dress, Diem gets a quick 411 from the Corbois cousins on how very, very truly bad this is. Someone tell her to talk to Miranda Priestley next time, please. Chapter 17. 3 decades later, okay, it's more like an hour, but Diem is struggling through this funeral. What better way to pass the time and then with some small talk, like what will Diem's funeral look like if she dies in the challenging? What about something a little more cheerful? How about the story of Ulther's mate's murder? Yeah, cheerful indeed. When the story is over, Diem is confused as to why Ulther didn't find a second partner, and it was at this moment that Eleanor finally realizes just how delulu Diem is about descendant culture. Gareth finally has enough of their giggles and goes off on the four Corbois cousins, but he doesn't get much in before Diem and Luther fire right back at him, hitting him right in the anger issues. Chapter 18. Luther leaves to talk during another part of the funeral. Yes, did I mention that is still going on? And Diem uses this opportunity to get the full picture on Gareth's horrible backstory. Gah! I wish I could rip off his not-so-giant hanging balls. Sensing a need for a lighter topic again, Eleanor informs Diem that the man with incredible control, Luther, seems to have no control around her. The trope we love to see. And not liking where this conversation is heading, Diem spills some tea. She's already spoken for, and her betrothed is a mortal. There's no time to dwell on that nightmare waiting to happen. It's time to light the funeral pyre. Does that mean it's finally over? Taking a hesitant step towards the pyre that no one told her about, Diem panics. How the hells is she supposed to use her magic on purpose? Don't worry, Diem dear. Luther is here to help. After a few empowering words, Diem begins to glow. Hey, isn't that the name of this book? And I don't mean happy glow, but she's physically glowing. But right before she can even spark, her magic fizzles out because out in the crowd, watching everything, is a crying Andrei Bellator. Chapter 19. Back at the palace, Diem takes a post-panic attack nap and is awoken by a knock at the door. Peeling her eyes open, she finds her father is in her room and he is shooketh by the turn of events. But now is the time for the hardest question yet. Did Andrei know Diem was descended? Turns out, yes and no, but he loves her no matter what. And her mother never really told him anything surrounding her birth or sperm donor. Seriously, Orly, stop with the secrets! Not wanting to part ways with her father, Diem invites him to be on her crown's council as her military advisor. While he knows this is a bad idea, Andrei accepts anyway, wanting to help his daughter however he can. Chapter 20. Watch out, Henry! Diem's got a new love, and it's Alix and her power of turning people invisible! But nothing like Luther informing Diem just how bad her performance at the funeral has messed things up to crush that admiration quick. But rather than dwell on the bad shit, Diem daydreams about the good, like just how good that kiss was. And Luther is right there with her, his hands moving dangerously low on Diem's back. But all good things must come to an end, especially when Taryn and Eleanor start kicking down the door. Apparently a bet of theirs had been settled when they found the state of Diem and Luther. With the challenging right around the corner, Luther proposes that Diem starts training her magic. Damn it, so close. Another proposal is offered, not the one we want. Instead, come to the Corbois dinner party this evening. Chapter 21. After a one-sided conversation with Sarai, Diem pulls on her big girl pants, or in this case, dress, and mentally preps for a dinner with the Corbois. Arriving in the dining room, Diem is practically overdressed compared to everyone else, especially the naked person. Taking her seat next to Aean that is far away from Luther, who is sitting with Iliana, Diem puts on a show, allowing Aean to cop a feel at her thigh dagger. Naughty cousin. After successfully navigating round after round of Corbois politics, Diem makes her first mistake. She drops a bomb that she has been in Luther's bedroom, and Iliana might as well have steam coming out of her ears because she's fuming. At least that mistake pissed her off. Seeing this is her chance to take a dig at Diem, Iliana loudly proclaims that Diem's scar is a sign of weakness and unseemly for a queen. Great God, I hate this gal. Chapter 22. Heading back to Diem's suite, Eleanor gushes over how perfect that dinner went. But who's this waiting by the door? It's a pissed off Luther. Calm down, Nicole, because whatever Luther has to say is gonna need to wait because Perth is back. He is alive. And he's doing his best Gandalf impression, telling Luther, "You shall not pass," without Diem's consent, at least. Allowing Luther into her room, Diem suddenly finds herself flat on her back, on her bed, with Luther between her legs. But sadly for Diem, Luther is only interested in her feet. Quick aside from our content researcher, Brooke. That's a sentence I never thought I would write because it's foot rub time. But right when things are heating up and Nicole is the most feral animal version of herself, Luther brings up Henry. And just like the ice bucket challenge, things cooled off real fucking quick. Well, What better way to cool things off even further than throwing around lies and verbal artillery like it's a not-so-friendly game of dodgeball, but every strike is a killing blow, causing Luther to leave. Damn it! Chapter 23. It's time for ballroom dancing lessons while Teller simultaneously gives history lessons, and poor Lily has been chosen as Diem's dance instructor. She might not have any toes left by the time the ball comes around, but what's time with Lily without a little tea? And the 411 is in. It turns out Luther did not leave last night's dinner with Ileana. Instead, he hid out in Lily's room. Huzzah! Speaking of the handsome devil himself, Luther joins the dungeon party. And while Diem and Luther are waiting for the others so they can start training, Diem can't help but note that Luther is fine. Needing a subject change so she doesn't jump his bones right here and now in the dark, secluded dungeon, Diem reinforces her thoughts about scars with a little show and tell. With a little persuasion, Luther returns with a show of his own. A little less Magic Mike style show and a little more telling Diem how Mother Lubno saved his life. But conversation is cut short when Taryn and Alix join the party and all topics switch to training and the godhood. Time to use some magic. Spoiler alert, she doesn't.
And that will be the theme for most of the rest of the book. All right, friends, it is time to reach for our foraging magic and unravel key insights, character analysis, lore, foreshadowing, theories, and so much more. And when I say it's time, I mean it's time for a timestamp. It is the day of King Ulther's funeral, which means it is one day after Diem and Remus made their bonded bargain where we ended things last episode. And it's 4 days since Diem got the crown.
And with any big function, there's one question. What will she wear? Fit Watch is back. Oh, I've missed you. This is Diem's first real public appearance since getting the crown, and she's wanting to show that she pays respect to Ulther in this moment. But she is stuck staring at her closet stacked with every outfit in every color, in every style that she can imagine. Because her advisor, Eleanor, may have stocked her with outfits, but she forgot to list out which outfit would be appropriate for which specific occasion. Diem is going off of everything that she knows, which is 99.999% mortal-isms. A modest black dress is the way to go in the mortal world for a funeral. So she picks out a modest black gown with a low back, so modest for the descendant at least, and decides that this is a good choice. Meanwhile, Sarai is strongly encouraging her to, hey, maybe check out that red dress, that slinky dress with the crisscrossing straps down the back and thighs. I love Diem's line about if she wore that to a funeral in the mortal world, her funeral would be next.
Every single time I read that line, I can't help but laugh. Yes.
Because again, this is all she knows. She is trying to blend in. She's trying to be one of the crowd. She's trying to be inoffensive. AKA, she's desperately trying to play it safe. And again, in the mortal world, this would have been right up the alley. And from what Sarai is suggesting with this red gown, that is the opposite of playing it safe in Diem's mind. So, black it is. Fun fact, wearing black to honor the dead started way back when in ancient Roman times when they would don something called the toga pulla, which was a dark toga.
Are you telling me toga? I feel weird saying that around a funeral, but you know.
Toga.
No, it's a celebration of life. So you know what? Bring out the
toga chants. God. Then in the 19th century, when a woman's husband would die, they were required to wear black for up to 4 years following the death of their spouse. And it was split into 2 mourning periods. Number 1 was full mourning, which was all black. And then number 2 was half mourning, where she was allowed to incorporate purple and gray into her wardrobe. What about red, though? In Ghana, they view death as a transitional stage, and they wear red for the color of blood, aka symbolizing life. With her dressed and ready to go and our history lesson out of the way, it's time to head to the funeral.
Low-key, one of the sweetest moments in this book is when Diem flies on Sarai for the first time. Diem has been told to fly into the arena where the funeral is taking place, but in the process, Diem and Sarai are able to have their own moment of fun and bliss. They both needed this so badly. And you know what? This isn't Fourth Wing, so no saddle for you, Sarai. I love this relatable line. Quote, "My problems weren't gone, but they were anchored to the ground and I was in the skies." Unfortunately, we might not be flying in the sky on our Griverns, but I know for me, when my problems problems feel extra heavy, going on a run is so freeing. And it's like my own little way of separating myself from my problems to clear my head and my emotions. And then when I have to get back to my problems, they feel much more manageable.
This is one of those lines that just makes me want to like go outside and feel the wind on my face and touch grass a little bit. It feels so good. Like, it may not be flying on a dragon, which, by the way, that would solve a lot of my problems, I feel like. But it's just a good reminder that sometimes your problems feel so big and then you go into a moment and it's like, oh, wow, maybe I just needed a moment away.
Here, Sarai is showing her new queen her world, and they're bonding, and it's just so sweet. And Diem feels more free and happy than she ever has. We talked at length in our Spark of the Everflame coverage about how Diem had a sheltered life, and while it was comfortable, it also wasn't what she chose. She didn't feel free to make her own career choices. And while she definitely wouldn't admit it to herself, she didn't feel free to find love that was passionate and fulfilling for her, because she should want to be with Henry. And now with the crown, she most definitely doesn't feel free. She often refers to herself as broken. And while yes, there are happy moments, Diem is so weighed down with really big problems. And here she is having a moment just for herself and Sarai. And I just want to say we all deserve these little moments, especially when we feel the weight of the world and our problems on our shoulders. Also, I bet it's been years and years and years since Sarai experienced this kind of fun. She's probably flown around, since the king was ill, but this is special because she's connecting with Diem with her new crown. And we know from Luther that Sarai and Ulthar didn't have the same kinship. I gather they were more of a professional bond, so to speak, while Sarai and Diem have a heartfelt one. They both needed each other in this flight, and have I mentioned how sweet it is?
So I also had this question because it makes me wonder, when was the last time Sarai took a ride with her crown bonded? Because like you said, her and Ulthar were professional at best. They weren't really close. And then when he fell ill, obviously she didn't go with him. And I don't think she'd let Remus touch her with a 10-foot pole because he's not the crown, And we don't know who was the crown before Ulthar and how Sarai felt towards them. So it has been, what I can assume, a really long time since Sarai has felt this kind of bond and this kind of freedom. Sadly, before they can fly away and never return, the arena holding the funeral comes into view. This large oval structure is holding thousands of descended, and the audience is almost entirely wearing a vivid color of cherry red, some with jewels or flashy sequins or even light magic enhanced so it sparkles even just a little bit more. There's only one exception of one patch, and we will come to learn this is the mortal guests wearing black. Fuck, this is bad. This is really, really bad. And not like, oh, I thought this was a costume party and I'm the only one dressed up bad. Or I didn't get the memo and this was black tie and I show up in jeans bad. Or everyone else is in pajamas and you're in a ball gown bad. It's fine. It's not like these scenarios are my worst nightmare or anything. No, this is like insult the descended and might as well have worn a sign that states you are siding with the mortals bad. As we come to learn from a distraught Eleanor, they wear red to honor their kindred blood, and they wear something that reflects light to represent the glow of the afterlife where souls rest if they are found worthy.
To be honest, this sounds like the Everflame to me.
Ooh.
Just something to consider when we think about these traditions' origins and such.
That is not the last time this episode we are going to be comparing their religion to the Everflame. How interesting.
Yes, exactly. Just wanted to point that out there.
Oh, I love this. Now, what about the flip side? Because that's if she had worn red. What does wearing black suggest? It suggests that Diem believes Ulthar's soul was found unworthy. And because only mortals wear black, it will be seen as a show of loyalty to the mortals. Remember, it is less than a week. It's 5 days since the attack on the armory. And the Descended know about the growing attacks from the mortals, specifically from the Guardians.
It's really interesting that the mortals wear black and then the Descended, I don't know whether it was already decided or somewhere there was an origin where black was bad for them. And so I wonder if that was kind of in the early days of really creating the cultural separation between these two people,
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yes, yes, yes. So the TLDR is that this is bad, bad, bad. Everyone would be shocked if she didn't get challenged. And if the faux pas wasn't felt by Diem, the Corbois faces would say it all. Gareth is unsurprisingly disgusted. Lily is mortified. Eleanor is nearly in tears. I don't know why I'm laughing. I think this is so funny. Taryn is grinning, but I don't think it's from malice. Instead, I wonder if he's trying to put her at ease with a friendly face.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Remus is clearly calculating how to spin this best to his advantage. and Luther is in a rage. Quick aside, because at first I was like, why is Luther mad? But then I thought about it, and I wonder if he's mad because he knows Eleanor is Diem's advisor, and he told Diem that he approves of Eleanor last episode. So I wonder if he was going to tell Diem about wearing red, but he decided to take a step back because he wanted Eleanor to stretch her wings as advisor and give her that opportunity he knows she should have been given her whole life. And when he sees she didn't tell Diem about wearing red, he's furious because he's realizing his job of keeping her alive just got a hell of a lot harder, and he's realizing he could have stopped this. But it is Sarai who roars and snarls at the audience and then bows her head, showing, fuck you and your opinions! She clearly doesn't need to take my advice, but I am in the queen's corner. Fucking love Sarai! But sadly, Sarai's show of support did not change the opinions of the audience, because as Diem walks to her seat, she overhears hushed murmurs of completely disrespectful. She looks like a mortal only days after the attack. Remember, yes, this was less than a week ago that the immortals attacked the armory. And of course, she's not even a real Corbois. I'm making light because I can't put myself in Diem's shoes without wanting to claw my own skin off. This is so bad. I feel for Diem.
Golly, this dress situation would have been some useful insight from Diem's advisor for court and culture. Because yeah, it's literally Eleanor's job to prevent this exact situation. I promise I will give Eleanor the benefit of the doubt in a moment, but I'm going to be honest here, I side with Luther.
I'm 100% on Luther's side here, yes.
This was the moment that I genuinely thought Eleanor was evil because of how bad this fumble is. But you know what? Luther himself also gave Diem a rundown earlier today over breakfast, and he also did not think to share this very important cultural information with Diem. So you're not necessarily one to point fingers, Mr. Luther Pants.
I absolutely agree with you and see my above statement, because I guarantee you that he thought Eleanor had it and he wanted to prove that he trusts Eleanor to do her job as an advisor. It's like he's trying to not be such a controlling asshole with Diem and her people, because if he had said something and Eleanor had told Diem and done her job, Diem easily could have been like, oh, do you not trust that my advisor had it handled? Like, do you not trust her to do her job? And then he would have looked like the asshole. Like,
okay, maybe so, but he also will say he does not care how he handles himself when he's protecting her. So definitely see where you're coming from, and I don't think he would care about stepping on Eleanor's toes with this very important information. I think it just went over his head too. Like, he didn't think to tell her.
Oh, and that he's angry at himself?
I don't think he's angry at himself. I really do think that he is blaming Eleanor. I am pointing my fingers at both of them right now.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
They both had ample opportunities to tell Diem this, and neither of them did.
Remus. We could also throw Remus under the bus here. He could have said something. He probably wouldn't.
He wouldn't, but yeah.
Well, I don't know, because he wants
That's true.
the queen to... He wants Diem to succeed, because he knows that she's going to be a hell of a lot easier to control than Luther. So I wish I had a third hand. I'd point 3 hands.
No, I'm sorry. Okay, hold on here. Because at the same time with all of this, Eleanor, you had one job. One job. And yes, it is an honest mistake. I hear that and I sympathize with that. But girl, this is a gigantic mistake that you so easily and yes, should have prevented. We all make mistakes at our jobs. Yes. I know I definitely have. And we all deserve the grace that Diem offers. Absolutely. I wholeheartedly believe that. And Diem will be like, there's nothing to forgive. That's where I'm on Luther's side.
Yes.
Because this honest mistake just gave the realm the worst possible first impression of this new queen. This is the first time most Lumnos descended are seeing Diem, and she might as well loudly be broadcasting, "You sucked, Ulther," or even worse, "Yay for mortals and down with the descended."
Well, and as Luther puts it, he says, quote, "You're an unchallenged queen. Honest mistakes will get you killed." Homeboy is like, I am trying my hardest. This is so You just made my life so hard. Again, pointing a finger at him, but alas.
This actually reminds me of something I learned in high school. My psychology teacher my senior year shared a statistic that has really stuck with me. And that is, if you make a bad first impression, it takes 7 good impressions to make up for that bad first impression. And I remember this because I was texting as he shared that on the first day of class. And then he said, now I have to make 7 good impressions to him. And I was horrified and embarrassed. And I did not text again in that class. Someone get Eleanor sticky notes to put on these damn dresses so Diem can know what they mean. Because we've all established Diem's out of her element, and this is a whole new world, but not in a good way, where everything is nice and clouds and all that. Eleanor has made it very clear that how Diem dresses and presents herself is its own political warfare. And then she dropped the ball. So you know what, Eleanor? I'm so sorry. I know it was a mistake, and your guilt should be punishment enough. But you get an L, and I am giving you this L. It might be an uppercase L, but I'm giving it to you so gently because I feel like I'm kicking a puppy, and I don't want to do that. But you need an L here, Eleanor. I will also give Luther an L, but his is lowercase, not for chastising Eleanor, because I would be fuming too. That's Diem's L to give Luther. But because he also didn't think to mention this to Diem. Yes, maybe because of what Nicole said, but still. Yeah. And you know what, Diem, you also get an L, because when the explanation of why this was so bad was shared with her, she said, quote, "Had I known that, I definitely would have worn this dress." You know what? Have some class, girl. I know you hate the Descended, and this is the late king's funeral and all that, but that is just rude.
You know who doesn't get an L from this, though? Taryn, because he does his absolute best to make Diem feel like this is not the end of the world. For an hour, he bursts out laughing every time he looks at her dress and vows to call her, quote, "Her depressing majesty, Queen Diem, the royal undertaker," for the rest of her life. Now, before you're like, oh, how does this make Diem feel better? Because this is Diem. Her love language is poking fun and making light of things. And when people see her, or worse, when they're talking negatively about her, she doesn't need someone to say, shh, it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay. She needs someone to make those voices quiet down, and that is exactly what Taryn's doing. Then, after that first hour, he turns his teasing on the rest of his family members, taking the spotlight off of Diem when she's less raw. And as Diem notes, it's a kindness she won't soon forget.
Okay, now that I got my scolding out of my system, in Eleanor's defense, all she's ever known is being Descended. It's hard to explain everything important to know about your own culture when it's just so ingrained in you. Diem is especially uninformed about the Descended. Her mother purposefully ensured Diem learned as little about them as possible, so she knows less than other mortals, and that's really saying something.
You know who really gets the biggest L here? Is fucking Orly.
Oh, she just gets an L across the board this whole series, yes. It doesn't cross Eleanor's mind to remind Diem of this because it's just a fact of their culture. And the Descended don't know how little mortals, and specifically Diem, know about the Descended. Remember how Diem will tell Taryn off shortly here as he makes fun of what mortals know about Descended. He doesn't know what mortals are taught about the Descended or why they're taught what they're taught. So we can assume that's how it is for most Descended, which again goes to show how separated these two peoples are. They don't know what's being taught about each other. Then we'll get further proof when Eleanor can't believe Diem doesn't know about mates. And she'll be like, "You really don't know our culture, do you?"
I literally wrote in my notes, all caps, "Eleanor, be better at your job."
But that's exactly what I'm saying here.
I know,
yes, I
still.
100% agree with you. Eleanor's version of not knowing about our culture is very different than Diem's version of not knowing about the Descended culture. Eleanor's thinking like, okay, she's like at a level 3 because that's her baseline, while Diem is literally at level 0.
Or -4.
Yes, exactly. And it's hard to know for Eleanor where to begin with offering an insight into the ins and outs of her culture when someone is at a level 0, and she doesn't even know that this person is at the level 0. At least Diem recognizes this and reminds Eleanor that it's okay not to be perfect. And now she knows that Diem is literally at that level 0, so Eleanor can move forward as a better advisor. Even though minutes later, Eleanor won't realize Diem doesn't know about mates and we gotta go back to level 0. Then she'll know we're really working with level 0.
Diem makes her way to the royal box that overlooks the large arena, and this is the same arena she will be in for the challenging. But notably, Diem decides not to take up the spot in the seat of honor at the front of the box, a position that would put her even more in the spotlight than she is right now. So she decides instead to sit with the family, and Uncle Gareth will take her seat of honor. Which, pause. Genuine question, is this wise? Give the two men who want to hold on to power in the kingdom the prime spotlight? And I guess it does really play into that position that her and Remus are wanting to create for her, of her being like the daft queen and not really taking things seriously. So I guess I think it's wise. I have made my mind up.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think it's also wise. They need to get the spotlight off of Diem, and Remus does have existing relationships with the other houses, and Diem does have to rely on the reputation of House Corbois to help her get through the challenging here so that she can then take over and kick those guys out. And so I do think that this is smart in the moment. However, if Diem was allowing this to happen after her coronation, which we all know how that shit hits the fan there, then that would be like, okay, nope, like she would take her power back then.
Yeah, I agree. But instead, we get her seated on tuft settees, squeezed between Luther and Taryn, with Aemon a few settees away and Eleanor directly behind her. But even as the funeral begins, Diem notices how the royal box doesn't stop talking. Instead, conversation continues at a dull roar, and the Corbois laugh and mingle freely. This got me wondering, because I find this such an interesting element of world building. Do you think they do this at every funeral just because like lives are so long that they're not really seen as sad and it's just another event to get together? Or is this a specific to all their things, showing how not little they cared about the king, but little they respected the king?
I honestly never thought about that. I wonder if King Ulthar was ill for so long that he's already become irrelevant. So King Ulthar has been out of the picture for months and months. So his death wasn't really a big deal to his family and the other descended because he'd already been gone for a while. While we discussed this on the deep dive last episode, now is when we officially get the reveal that Ulthar had a mate, Raphael, and the tragic story unfolds, illuminating the consequences of bonded bargain wording, how a crown's loved one can be targeted, and it provides a little insight into King Ulthar, the start of his reign, and how ruthless House Corbois can be. Just as Ulthar got the crown all those centuries ago, he was cheated in a trade agreement with another house. I understand this as in the midst of the bad business deal, he then became the crown, which is real tough timing for the other house who cheated him. So once Ulthar was the crown, he wanted to prove his strength before his challenging. And he did this by shutting the entire house down who cheated him of that trade agreement. What does shutting down their house mean? It means Ulthar seized their property and ordered all of them to either leave Lumnos, join another house, or become one of the unhoused descended that live on the outskirts of the realm. With nothing left to lose, an elder from that house poisoned Raphael and then demanded with a bonded bargain that Ulthar reinstate their house in exchange for an antidote, and he doesn't punish her house for it later. This is cold and important for us to understand how cruel these descended can be, especially on the heels of Luther's warning about Henry getting targeted and how many enemies Diem has. What's more, when King Ulthar agreed to save his beloved mate's life, this elder gave him an antidote, not the antidote for his poisoning. So sadly, Raphael died anyway, and King Ulthar couldn't seek revenge without losing his magic. Except there was one more loophole in this bonded bargain. Ulthar couldn't do anything about this, but his brothers could, and seek their revenge they did. Remus and Gareth took out the entire house. Every last one of them, they were wiped out overnight. Okay, so now we know what Gareth and Remus are capable of too. But Diem, Luther wouldn't be part of that. I love how Taryn defends his cousin, and it's like, what the fuck? How could you even ask that question if Luther participated in wiping out this entire house, including the innocent children? Once again, it is proven to Diem that Luther is a good person, no matter how difficult it is for Diem's wannabe narrative of him to keep her heart safe.
I love Taryn and Luther's relationship. Taryn will stand by Luther's side until the day he dies. I just love them so much together. They're so great.
Ulthar never got over his mate's death and never trusted another house again. He became a shell of himself, and he surrounded himself throughout his reign with only Corbois. Only his brothers and their children, aka the closest people to him, were on the council, and only Corbois were allowed to live and work in the palace, and that's how things have been ever since. Oh, makes me wonder how Lumnos will be ruled by the end of Burn. Like, will there be other houses on the council later? Because this is a fairly new thing for only the family members of the reigning crown to be on the council. And I assume at least one mortal. So I guess my question is, who among the other houses would be trustworthy to have on a council of Diem's making, or even Luther's making, if he becomes the Lumnos king?
No matter what, by the end of the series, there is going to be some kind of council, like there is in Montios. So I know there probably wouldn't want to be too many cooks in the kitchen, so I don't know if one person from every single house makes sense.
Oh, God. That sounds like my worst nightmare.
I know, right? That's terrifying. But like maybe 5 descended, five mortals, no matter what, I see it being equal mortals and descended. I don't see it just being one mortal and all descended, because I feel like Diem would want to have that fair fight.
All of this to say, descended have mates.
No!
What? And I love how mating bonds work in this fantasy world. It'll be a future Sofos library topic, so I'm going to keep this explanation short for now. Mating bonds are far deeper than marriage to descended. It's where two halves become a whole, and your heart is bound to your mates for eternity. And it can only be made by true love. While any two descended can attempt the mating ritual, the bonding magic only works if the love is genuine and unconditional. A mating bond changes you physically, where you sense your mate's emotions, and you can't be apart for too long or you become ill. Your magic weakens, or you can even die from it. And yes, we are on the lookout for Luther to show these symptoms in his first 3 chapters of Burn. Link to read in the show notes.
There is a passage that's just moments after the opening of the book where Orally notices how Luther is unwell, and she assures Luther that Diem is okay, she's okay. And he's like, I fucking know she's okay. She would survive everything no matter what. And Arlie's like, all right, bro, then what's the matter? And quote, I kept my silence. The truth was too raw, too painful to explain. I bet you anything this is the separation mating bond feeling.
How did I miss this?
I parsed through that text. So, and there's a few others, but read the book, read the chapters. They're good.
Oh my gosh.
But I want to go back to that, how they can feel others' emotions, because that's not just a Burn thing. There are moments in these chapters alone where Diem feels like Luther can sense her emotions. Later, when Gareth chews them out for being all happy and such, Diem will think how she can see through Luther's calm demeanor, quote, or rather felt through it. It cannot be a mistake that in the same chapter, moments after mates are discussed, Diem says this, even correcting herself, saying that she could see it and then no, she feels it. Like, this is absolutely, but I don't know how that would work.
I'm pretty sure that's in reference to his aura, because she often refers to feeling and sensing his power from that. You know what? Let's ask Pen. Let's get Pen. Phone a Pen.
Can mates sense each other's feelings before a bond is formed? No. Unless there's something else going on, like if one of them has Umbros magic, for example, and can, read other people's minds, maybe that opens a connection for them to either consciously or subconsciously sense thoughts and emotions or project thoughts and emotions. That could be at play. But if we're talking to people who have no other magic or anything else that would be involved, it's definitely not fated mates. There's not some kind of soul bond connection that allows them to have some special rapport before a mating bond is formed that would bring them together. It's intended to be that you really choose this person and not that the gods or something else chose them for you. I will say, that doesn't necessarily mean that there can't be other kinds of connections. We certainly know that Lumnos, the goddess Lumnos, wanted Luther and Diem to work together, and she pushed them towards each other. She told Luther to seek out the gray-eyed queen, and Diem feels this connection to him, even though she's not really sure what it is. And so that doesn't necessarily mean that they're fated to be mates or even to like each other romantically or even to be friends. But the gods certainly want them to work together and to be linked on this journey to do whatever it is the gods intend for them to do. And so that can exist alongside burgeoning feelings, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they have some sort of like soul connection or can sense each other's thoughts or feelings in that way. So I know that's a little bit of a non-answer, but I think the connection between them is something that exists on many different levels. Let's put it that way.
Well then, that makes sense.
Sorry,
like
that's
that.
not what your romantic heart wanted to hear, Nicole.
I do like it better because I prefer this style of mates in this world. Let me be clear.
Me too.
I like that you have to choose them really actively, and it's not like just some fated situation, because we've all read a fated mate story, and I love them, don't get me wrong, but I love this twist on them. So I accept defeat.
Yay! I don't mean it like that, but I mean just like yay for these mating bonds. We both love them so much.
Yeah, mating bonds are great. We like mating bonds.
And the mating bond is respected by all descended across realms. Even if one mate is imprisoned, the other is allowed access to them at all times. I bet you $1 million we will see this play out in Burn.
So I'm really genuinely curious on if this is going to happen with Diem and the island, because Luther cannot step foot on the island without dying. But if they're separated for too long and they are mated, which we both think they are, then their health will decline, their magic will decline. So I could just see them, like maybe Luther gets on a boat and is like, like circling the outer rim of Korea. And he's like, hello. She's like, hello. And he's like, how are you? It's just romance right there. Wow.
He'll be like, is Igneos dead yet? And she'll be like, no, babe, I healed him. And he'll be like, damn it, I love you and your heart, but damn it!
Now, Lexi, you forgot about the most important part of the mating bond. And do you know what that is?
Sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me.
They say sex with your mate. It's mind-blowing.
I'm so sorry, I forgot that.
Yeah, how dare you?
With the mating bond, when I say you become two halves of a whole, I really mean it. When one mate dies, they stay in limbo until the other joins. Their worthiness is judged together as a single soul. First of all, I'm so happy for Luther and Raphael because I'm just imagining them reunited at the Golden Gates, that are floating on the clouds, and their reunion is just so beautiful. He's probably also looking down and seeing what's going on with Diem, and it's like, dear, okay.
Oh, dear. That was a choice.
Second, who judges their worthiness? The kindred? If that's the case, Mother Lumnos, who loved the mortals, is probably pretty pissed off at all of her descended. But I don't know. I don't feel like the judgers are the kindred.
I definitely don't think they're the kindred, because when they were mated, the kindred would have had to have their souls judged, and who would have judged the kindred souls? And then the kindred come from a different place. We don't really know a whole lot about it yet, but they had different deities on that planet, realm, place, wherever it is. So I wonder if it's their deities, but I have a plot twist. What if it's the old gods?
Seriously, though, that goes right back to what the red represents.
Yes!
And how it reminded me of the old mortal religion with the Everflame.
Yes, that.
So I'll go another step further here. We know that the kindred and their mortal partners, they could have their own version of a mating bond. Like, I don't know if it's the exact same, because we've heard it's only possible between descended, but it seems like it was possible between a kindred and their mortal lover.
Well, they only call them mates. And whether that was just because that was who they chose to spend the rest of their life with, I never took it that way. I just kind of always assumed they were mates, but I never put two and two together that how would they do that with a mortal? But I just assumed it would work. So then, are you saying Teller and Lily?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
No!
That would mean that Lily is giving up her descended lifespan, like how the kindred did for their mortal lovers. But I could see that happening, and Lily and Teller actually do have a mating bond. And it shows that it is possible between descended and mortals. And it really kind of bridges these two cultures together.
I love that. And I'm not too sad about like Lily giving up her immortal lifespan. I'm more sad for Luther and what seeing his little sister age and die long before him would do for him.
I agree. And that's already going to happen for Diem. So for the two of them to at least have each other with their little sibling, I mean, that would be the saddest thing ever. But at the same time, it's the most beautiful situation for lose-lose, right? Oh, also, I'm like, what if at the end of Burn of the Everflame, it's Diem and Luther being reunited in the afterlife? And like, that's like the epilogue.
Are you saying they die?
No, eventually everybody dies. And so like, then it would just be like, whenever that is, I'm not saying that either of them are dying in Burn, but then they are eventually reunited in the afterlife, and then they go forth as one soul together.
Okay, that is nice. I like them both alive better, but yes. All On a different, much happier note, let's talk about failed mating rituals. Remember how if you both confess your love and perform the ritual, shedding a little blood, then it's all good, right? Nope, it's not all good, because sometimes the love is not deemed true, and therefore the mating bond fails. Awkward, because you both just basically admitted that you don't unconditionally love each other. That would be terrible. That would be awful.
I love how when they're talking about this, Diem immediately thinks of Henry.
But you know what's even worse is one mating bond is deemed worthy and is fulfilled, but the other bond fails. The person whose bond fails does not have any of the ties of mating. They don't need to be at their mate's side. They don't need to, split their soul in the afterlife or whatever. None of it. But the person who is mated, technically, they are called stranded mates. And it's all the parts of the mating bond they are tied to. It's the splitting of their soul, the making it so you can't be away from your mate for too long or you die. You feel their emotions. You're having to be near them. You're never being able to love another person, all the while your mate goes on and lives your life. It is rare, but I have to ask, do you think we're going to see this? And if so, why am I terrified it's going to be Taryn?
That's what I'm worried about too.
No!
But I also love
okay, what if
Zelrix,
it's flip-flopped? What if it's flip-flopped? What if, Zelrix goes through and then Taryn's doesn't?
That would be the ultimate plot twist. I don't even see a world with that would happening because of Taryn and how sweet and all. I don't know. But I have a lot of other questions about stranded mates, though. Like, for instance, how does it work when they die? Here I am going back about that. Because would their soul be judged with their would-be mate? But would they still be in limbo until their second half dies?
I think they would still be in limbo until their second half dies. And I think they would still be judged, but the other person wouldn't be judged.
Okay, so can the other person successfully bond with another mate? And then when the souls are judged, there's an awkward third wheel. How does this all work?
Yeah, I'm going to go with yes. I think that could happen, and I hate it, but I think that could happen. Can you just imagine being at the gates, and you and your mate, you're reunited, you're so happy, you're lovey-dovey, and then right here.
And that person has been chasing you your whole life, and it's you did love them at one point to do the ceremony, and you didn't love them enough, and now you're probably okay, I don't know what to do. And then you pretty much have I don't want to say a stalker for the rest of your life, but you still have some responsibility to this person who physically needs you. It would be so weird.
Oh, can you imagine if it was a really messy breakup? Can you imagine your messiest breakup having to constantly, every once in a while check in with them? Yeah, no.
Shivered there. To nobody's surprise, Diem's no thank you. Being mated sounds absolutely terrible.
Honestly, same right now. That's awful right now.
We learned in Spark that Diem has some commitment issues, to put it simply. While she is not willing to admit it, I think a big part of this is because she associates the feeling of love for herself with Henry. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have the spark. It doesn't have the passion that she kind of hopes love would have. She's seen how in love her parents are. She's witnessed deep, unconditional love in her patients. She certainly believes in love. However, Diem knows she doesn't love Henry in that way. She loves him as a friend. She's actively trying to convince herself she loves him in the other way, but she just doesn't. So when she's hearing about mating bonds, she, of course, thinks of Henry because that's the person who she connects with, who she would be mated with. And, of course, she's like, nope, I do not want that.
Diem is so steadfast in her individuality and her freedom. She views marriage or commitment as binding herself to the ball and chain, basically. And it's a death of her choice of freedom. Yes. I would also argue, and you kind of alluded to this, that she's only been with someone who suggested that she would have to live a life with him that would change her entire personality and is not in alignment with who she is.
Literally a few paragraphs before she was like, he would never actually expect that of me. And then he expects that of her. And she's like, oh, that was the wrong thing to say.
And guess who she's betrothed to?
On that same note, we also know that once when she does fall in love, in true love with Luther, it's natural and genuine, and all she wants is forever with him. She doesn't have to convince herself of that at all. She just innately feels that in her soul, just deep, deep down.
So I actually had a very similar with this, similar situation. I was steadfast on I would never get engaged or married until I am in my mid-30s. There is no way, I want to live my life. I want to live my life to the fullest and da-da-da-da-da. And then I met Brett and I was like, oh, but I want to live the rest of my life with you. Like, I like you a lot, and I ended up getting married at 29. So it's like, it's the when you know person, right? That cheesy thing. Despite Diem not being fully aboard this whole mating thing, the idea of the Corbois not being able to mate does not sit right with her. After all, it's a rule in place by Remus and Gareth, who believe marriage is not for love or that mating nonsense. Instead, it is for politics. And Diem says no to that. She won't get in the way of her cousins and mind-blowing sex. A woman after my own heart. Speaking of mind-blowing sex, welcome back Luther from the podium. I love this line about how he's just left for a few minutes and the conversation has already turned to sex. It's so good. But upon hearing that Diem lifted the no mating rule, Luther stares into Diem with that classic piercing gaze, and his voice is heart-stoppingly soft. Question: do you think that this is the first time he's looked at her and truly believed that they could possibly be mates? And he's seeing a future that they might have someday? Because that's what I think.
I took it more as oh, you truly are the queen that we need. But sure.
One of our priorities is straight and the other is not. But leave it to Diem to spray some cold water on them, just like Lexi sprays some cold water on my romantic heart sometimes. And she brings up how, hooray, now Luther can officially be mated to Iléana. Blech. Luckily, Luther ain't having that, shutting down any thought of him and Iléana ever being together because of love.
Yes, and Diem will absolutely 100% listen and believe him, right? Ha! Not if Aean will have anything to do with that, but I'm getting ahead of myself. That's for the dinner party.
I'm so excited. But it's tension time, everyone. Diem asks Luther what it is he wants then. His eyes drag slowly to hers. He says, quote, something I cannot have. Hot! Consider this a warm-up for the foot massage later.
It wouldn't be a descended royal's funeral if there wasn't a family feud, though, right? Cold bucket of water Uncle Gareth has had enough of these younger family members childishly giggling. This is a very solemn event, after all. Go Luther for saying the late king would have been honored by their laughter. Things quickly escalate, first between Luther and Gareth. Luther fires the first shot, not letting his uncle forget he knows and will never forgive him for what Gareth did to his children. Then Gareth claps back, very thinly veiling an accusation that Luther killed the king and is now targeting the new young queen to ensure she meets her end too. Luther is that ambitious for the crown, after all. Well, damn! Not so much a clapback, but like a big boom explosion there. But Luther stands his ground, pushing more on his uncle's horrible actions. They are in the royal box in an arena, right there on display with all of the Lumnos descended present. They might not have mics attached to them, but this is a very public showdown, and Terran is not having this. Oh, poor Terran. My heart hurts for him as Luther's kind of dragging his old shit up, and yes, he is confronting him.
Right
yeah,
now.
but I understand, like, Luther is defending him and really laying it on as a fuck you, Gareth, like, you are not a good person. And Terran is like, oh, please keep me out of this right now. Diem enters his family battle as Gareth continues accusing Luther of exactly what Diem herself has feared, that he is playing her to ensure she fails and he can then get the crown. But she defends herself and, in turn, Luther. Diem uses the only thing she truly has as her weapon against these royal descended, her position of power. She tries the same tactic on Gareth that worked so well on Remus last episode. She's dangling the carrot of a prestigious title and continued influence beside the crown. But Gareth is not Remus, and he doesn't fall for the carrot because he is too disgusted by her. He won't play nice with her like his brother. He won't sink that low with a half-mortal. After all, she won't be around that long. Like Luther will say, Gareth won't retaliate against Luther without his father's permission. The fact that is even a possibility, these guys are so ruthless. But Luther warns that Gareth doesn't give two shits about Diem, and he is very dangerous. In other words, she's probably got a target on her back now for threatening Gareth's power status. I think Gareth is going to be a major problem in Burn. Penn has said we're going to learn a lot more about the Corbois family, and I think plenty of that will include Remus and Gareth. They wiped out a whole house. They are snakes in politics. They are used to power, and I see no way of this story ending with these two still alive, because Diem is going to take that power, and the old generation is going to not be as important as the new, younger, more progressive generation rises up.
Interesting. I definitely see Gareth dying. I could not agree more. But I could see a redemption-ish arc for Remus in store. Maybe
remember what he does in Heat?
I was going to say, ask me that after we've deep dove in Heat.
Okay, sounds good.
That's how I'm feeling now.
There is no way in hell these two are going to let Diem come in and shake things up. And here, before the challenging and all the events of Heat, these two brothers are taking very different strategies of keeping their power, open hostility being Gareth's.
Unsurprisingly, this dude from Gareth has Diem just fuming. But in comes Luther. He tells her to sit back, stop glaring, which I just think is hilarious, and don't let Gareth see that he got to her. Go Luther. Diem's temper is not her best quality, and Luther has mastered the art of the stony mask, making it appear that others' opinions just don't bother him. I mean, we'll be seeing this literally on display later at the Corbois family dinner when Iliana starts shitting on him for having scars. Diem luckily listens to Luther's coaching despite her own stubborn nature. Good job, Diem. And maybe just to distract her from said anger, he stretches out his legs and props his arm on the back of her seat, his thumb slowly stroking her neck as it passes. Oh, sir.
I'm going to start calling her deflecting Diem with the way she tries to deflect any feelings for Luther.
I just see like a whatcha. I find it ungodly attractive when a partner puts their arm behind your chair and like strokes your arm or something. Ah, 5 stars, good sir. But maybe it's not as subtle as Diem thought though, because Eleanor pounces on Diem after Luther leaves for the podium again. Eleanor loves the hot goss.
Now's as good a time as any for Diem to let Eleanor in on her secret that she is engaged to a mortal. Well, the engagement part kind of slipped out, but Eleanor did need to know anyway. And the fact that this descended, who Diem trusts most, who has the kindest heart and open mind, even she is like, a mortal king consort. Okay. I don't think this is a conscious prejudice on Eleanor's part by any means, but it underlies how radical this is of Diem to even consider. Because like Diem thinks, Luther is right. The descended won't willingly accept a mortal as king consort, and Eleanor knows this too. We may be getting to know well-meaning and really good-hearted descended. However, they are very much in the minority. The descended have created too much separation and superiority over the mortals. They have ensured they are the powerful, and the mortals are lucky they're even allowed to exist in this world. And we do have to keep bringing that up as we do start to get closer to these descended, because they are the exception. All beef with Henry aside, Diem envisioning a reign with a mortal king consort is equalizing, and it gives the mortals a seat at the table they were exiled from millennia ago. 1,000,000% that inclusivity should be supportive. And Diem may be the queen, but she is not all-powerful and will not be able to protect Henry from the repercussions. We already know what happened to Ulther's mate because a house was pissed at the king. A mortal king consort would rally all the houses and most of House Corvois against Diem, and Eleanor knows it.
I know Eleanor doesn't know this, but I'm sure this is going through Luther's mind. He knows Henry is part of the Guardians, and this new era of Guardians have no problem being violent in many, many ways. And imagining a mortal king who has that type of value system is terrifying.
But I think Eleanor can also sympathize with Diem's predicament, because Diem had a whole life before coming to the palace and finding out she's descended. And that life, of course, included Henry. He was a main character in her life. And Eleanor knows that no matter what, this won't end well. But she also knows it's not her place to tell Diem who she can and can't be with.
But that's enough boy talk for now. The funeral is finally, and I cannot emphasize this enough, finally coming to an end. And while Diem thought she would just be chilling in the royal box for the rest of the time, it turns out Gareth, loving Uncle Gareth, has a gift for his, air quotes, niece. He was given the highest honor of lighting the king's funeral pyre, but he oh so kindly is giving that privilege to Diem. Boo, you suck, Gareth. Gareth could have a million reasons behind doing this, specifically payback for the earlier rift, but most of all, Gareth wants to ensure that Diem is on full display at the end of this funeral, especially after that rift earlier. Think about how this looks as a new queen sporting black, which already implies that she does not view Ulther's soul as worthy as he goes into the afterlife, and now she's lighting his body on fire. The other descendant would see this and view it as the highest level of disrespect. Basically, Gareth believes he just secured that she's getting a challenge.
I'm honestly a little surprised Remus allowed that, now that I think about that.
I think two things. One, I think Gareth sprung this on Remus, and Remus kind of had to play, okay, how can we make the best out of the situation? I 100% think his anger issues could have won that battle with Remus.
Well, and I think he believes Luther may be lying about Diem's powers, or Gareth knows that she doesn't have control over it. She will look weak as a descendant, which is a real bad look for them, while wearing a black dress. So it's a double win for him. All Diem needs to do is go out into the middle of the arena, right there on full display for everyone in attendance, and light the king's pyre with a spark of her light magic. Easy peasy lemon squeezy, right? Well, for any descendant but Diem.
Whether Gareth knows about Diem's struggles with her magic, we're not sure. I know you think that he does know, because especially Luther has told him and Remus that Diem has these magnificent powers. But he could have not believed Luther in that. We kind of alluded to this, but I wonder what's going through Remus's brain as this is unfolding. Although he does spin it to agree with Gareth, saying that a significant display of power would go a long way in offsetting a challenge, given this choice of dress. And I'm not going to lie, he's got a point.
So that actually does make sense that Remus did agree to this, because he does believe that Diem will be able to demonstrate that power. And it's Gareth who is like, all right, let's see if she can.
Yeah, I think you're super right. Diem is stuck between a rock and a hard place. And remember the last time she tried to use her magic? Nothing came out, and she was grateful for it. This was with Teller in the dungeon last episode. Now she has to not only use said magic to do something she's never done before, she has to do it with who knows how many thousands of people watching.
Thousands and thousands. Like,
oh my God.
a whole
This
realm of people.
makes me sweat. Oh God. This is the ultimate you're in a play and you don't know your lines nightmare.
I love how that's what you think of, because meanwhile, my nightmare is having to present to the board and I don't have anything prepared. That goes to show our experiences in the past. It's so real.
And Luther, seeing Diem, though, I don't know, internally freak the fuck out, decides that it's time to give her some guidance. The reason she struggles with using her magic is because she doesn't want to use it. Yes, that is an understatement. She doesn't want to accept what she is, and it's only when she will stop fighting the godhood and release that white-knuckle grip she has onto being mortal, then her magic will answer her in abundance. Luther says, quote, "Unleash, my queen. Show the world what it means to challenge Diem Bellator." Ah, Luther, you know just what to say. Using her full name, not Corbois, is a reminder that she can still be Diem Bellator with the spitfire nature that she had when she was a mortal as a descendant. She hasn't changed. She still is the same person. And Diem Bellator does not let others win fights, especially bullies like Gareth. Diem begins to glow softly, her own skin taking on a shimmery luminescence. Then she sees the fabric of her dress has transformed into black shadows, and it starts pooling around at her feet. Oh, I love this use of magic. Hearing Luther say unleash once more is all the coaching she needs for her godhood to take over. It's that surrendering of control to this unknown entity that Diem has really been blocking for herself. And from the palms of her hands, magic starts to gain an icy heat as her skin glows even brighter and sparks begin to swirl. I love this. Diem admits that it feels good and exciting to wield this kind of power that feels so utterly hers by right. Oh my God, I just want to tear up for Diem here. She's embracing, little though it may be, but embracing nonetheless her descended nature. She doesn't feel like she's putting on a mask here. She is just embracing what feels natural. We talked about this last book, that Diem, she feels like she was made for more, made for a bigger life than the mortal healer she was groomed to be. And here she is on the precipice of accepting it. And if only she did. I can't even imagine how differently her next month would go if she had actually fully leaned into this and the next part didn't happen.
Because yes, unfortunately, this does not last long. Diem can't help but look up in the highest rows where the mortals sit, wearing black and tucked away to stay out of sight and separated from the descendant in attendance. First, Diem sees Moira and she notices her dear family friend and old colleague looks at her like she's a beast about to devour her whole. Poor Diem. These are her people, her loved ones, and she's been terrified of what they'll think of her when they find out she's descended and the crown. I do think there is some unreliable narration in this moment, and Diem perceives Moira to be thinking bad thinks about her, when I believe this is more of a shock on Moira's part versus viewing Diem as one of them, simply based on what we learned about Moira in Spark. She's a lot more sympathetic than, I'll be honest, Diem's giving her credit for right now, and that's only because of how Diem feels in her mind.
I had a similar note on this front. I felt like that look of horrified is more, she can only imagine how other Diem feels in this moment and over who knows how many days since she last saw her, which was 4 days ago. I know we've used this phrase so much that it's borderline lost its meaning, but she is seeing her number one pupil out of her element, and I bet she feels for her. But it breaks my heart that Diem feels like Moira is having a similar reaction to Henry. She feels tainted, other, and unconsciously that feeling of wanting to be normal again washes over her.
Well, and Diem is actively having to stay connected to her power as she feels that pull between her descended true nature and her mortal identity she's always known. But then Diem sees her father. As the most celebrated and high-ranking mortal in the Amarian army and an unofficial advisor to the late king, of course her father's here. Honestly, I'm a little surprised Diem didn't wonder this earlier, but that's neither here or there. This is not how Diem wanted to tell her father that she is the descended crown. Not how she wanted to see him again after their terrible fight that's been haunting her. Keeping the secret from her father has been weighing on Diem. And for him to find out like this, it's the last thing Diem wanted or expected, which sends her spiraling into shock, making the magic she was successfully beginning to conjure vanish all of the sudden. Seeing her father cry for the first time ever makes Diem's worst thoughts take over. She broke her father when nothing else in this world could have. Just a few days ago, she told him that he was not her father, and now it is more obvious than ever before because the only possibility is that her sire was indeed descended, or something else, but we're not there yet. Her father has been her steadfast rock all her life, her source of strength, and now she has broken him, because Diem does think she is broken, and she is descended, and not who she always thought she was. And now her whole life has spiraled out of control, and she doesn't know how to grapple with the fact that she is descended and other from those she loves.
I want to take a moment and look at this from Andrei's POV, because I feel like he's in complete shock, too. I mean, we know from their later conversation that he had suspicions that she was descended, not that she would be the freaking queen. But most of all, he sees his daughter, who he loves, who he just had a huge fight with, in a situation he never expected possible. The tears are in no way disappointment or fear or what she is in any way. I feel like it's hurt for his little girl who he feels like he can't help in this moment.
Even down to her black dress. He knows exactly why she picked it, and he probably knows that she shouldn't have. And I wonder if the tears might also be there because he recognizes how ill-prepared she was for this. And this is confirmation of what her mother did all those years. And he is having his own processing of, oh my God, that explains what the last 10 years have been about.
Yeah.
This onslaught of emotions caused Diem to crumble in on herself in despair. Literally, her magic is gone. She didn't like the pyre. She falls to her knees and begins trembling. Poor Diem. She has a breakdown right here in the middle of the arena for all of the thousands of Lumnos descended to see.
This isn't her not wanting to be magical so she can feel normal. This is all of the grief she has with realizing she is descended coming down in a tidal wave on top of her. But the crowd only sees a queen collapsing to her knees. The mortals begin whispering and pointing. The descended start shouting. The royals are rushing the stage to get a better look. Y'all, this ain't reality TV.
Descended love their drama and they love preying on the weak. This is precisely what's unfolding, and yeah, they want a front row seat.
Luther is trying to fight to get to Diem, but he's being held back by Remus and Gareth. Gareth probably because this is exactly what he wanted, and Remus because if Luther goes up and saves her, then it looks like the man who was supposed to be king is coming to the rescue. But who does come to the rescue? A furious snarl instantly silences the crowd, and Sarai spits a stream of pale blue dragonfire onto the pyre, engulfing it and Ulther's body into flames. All right, with that, it's time to get the fuck out. Luther appears at her side, and I'm guessing he used like magic or something to break away from his father and uncle, and he orders Sarai to take her back to the palace.
There's such a sense of urgency to get Diem back to the palace safely, and it really does seem like her life is in immediate danger as the chaos ensues in the arena. Because, yeah, there might be the challenging in a few weeks, but this situation is so bad. Diem has shown herself to be weak because she's not able to conjure a simple spark to light the pyre, and her black dress shows she's sympathetic to the mortals. The other houses could see this as an opportunity to eliminate her right now because she's not even worthy to wear the crown for the month before the challenging. That's at least how I took the scene of rushing to get Diem away from the crowd.
Same.
The way that Diem will come back from this disaster of a spectacle is truly admirable. The pressure to demonstrate her magic in front of thousands of disrespectful and jeering eyes when she's never done it before, after making the honest mistake of wearing a black dress that gives the worst message possible, and then experiencing something akin to a panic attack in front of all these judgmental people who want to see her fail, where this is their first impression of her, and then with the chaos and implications that her life is in immediate danger for how bad this has all gone. This is a worst nightmare, and she'll end up putting her big girl pants on and go to dinner tonight, and that is some serious inner strength.
I would have wallowed in the bathtub with a bottle of wine and gone to bed early.
Me too. I would have grabbed that bottle of whiskey from Taryn and been like, see ya.
I would have ordered in sushi. I would have eaten it in the bath and gone to bed early.
Yes. Let's finally talk with Diem's father, who we haven't spent time with since episode 4 of Spark, which was when they had their huge fight. He kicked her out of the house and then the crown appeared on her head. We know from Teller that Andrei hasn't been home much since his argument with Diem and she left. Remember how Teller told their father that Diem was visiting a friend and didn't know when she'd be back. Andrei's been spending most of his time alone in the forest. I can only imagine how he's been consumed with his own guilt and how their argument went down, and his fear that he's about to leave his children to go off to war, because he is still supposed to do that in like 3 or 4 days. And there will be no one to protect his children. Luther sneaks Andrei into the palace to meet with Diem right after she's rushed away from the funeral. And oh man, if a girl ever needed a hug and strength from her dad, it's now.
Before any embraces, some shit's gotta get clean. Andrei admits that while he never knew for sure, he expected Diem was descended when her eyes changed from brown to gray. But he never asked Arlie about it. We get glimpses of Andrei and Arlie's view on sharing information or lack thereof with each other. We got that from last book, and we'll learn much more from Arlie in Heat of the Everflame. They both had highly confidential jobs in the armies, but this is them realizing that it went beyond their work. Both their keeping things from each other wasn't about distrust. It was quite the opposite. They trusted each other so implicitly that if there was ever something the other needed to know, they would share it. Listen, I'm not here to judge others and what works for them as individual couples. It might not work for others or myself, but I would argue that this is something the other needed to know about. But for Andrei, that's part of the unconditional trust. It's that feeling the trust with his wife she would have known best.
I wonder too, because what he suspected is a death sentence for his daughter. He never wanted to speak it out loud. He didn't want to speak this dangerous half-mortal possibility into existence.
Suspicious or not, Andrei decided that at the end of the day, this is Arlie's decision to make about her daughter. Whether on purpose or not, I do believe he made this choice that he didn't want to override Arlie's decisions because he wasn't Diem's true father. Like, even though in every sense of the word, he is Diem's father, full stop. I'm truly guessing here, but Andrei, one of the things I love about him is he's not perfect. And I could absolutely see that being a point of insecurity for him when it came to trying to get information on this particular instance.
Well, and this suspicion of his is a direct result of Diem's real father. And it was rolled up into the highly confidential mission that Arlie went on. So there were already secrets around this context. Diem may not be able to confront her mother about how she drugged her daughter and lied to her whole life, but she can express her hurt to her father because he suspected all these years and never stopped their mother from drugging her. Never stood up for Diem being her own person when that's really what he trained her to be. All Diem's life, Andrei has been her protector. Not necessarily as her shield, but he trained her to know how to protect herself. He taught her to find strength, be strategic, and be smart. And now, knowing that he suspected and did nothing, it feels like such a betrayal to her. Diem is so tired of people keeping secrets from her and finding out that her life was a lie. And now it's like her father sided with their mother when Diem is so mad at her for her choices of keeping her in the dark.
But there's that word, father. Upon confirming that Diem still considers Andrei to be her father, the anger between the two of them breaks, and he envelops her in a big, fierce dad hug. After 4 days of feeling uneasy, it's like the biggest whoosh of air is leaving her body. Because at the end of the day, for Andrei, Diem is still his daughter. And descended or mortal, queen or healer, none of it changes how he feels about her. Pause. Think about how badly Diem needed to hear this. Since becoming queen, she has had a constant battle of figuring out where she sits to strangers, and then also trying to desperately convince those from her old life that she isn't evil, different, or a magnitude of things that had her clinging to the familiar so much that she accepted a marriage proposal in order to prove to someone that she's still Diem. And here is Andrei saying that you are worthy, you are enough, you are everything to me, period. She doesn't need to be anything, prove anything, or change anything to know that her father loves her.
Ever the military leader with words of wisdom, Andrei does have advice for the challenging his daughter will have to face. Yes, it'll be like a fight she's never been in before because it's a battle of magic. But Andrei reminds her that no matter what, the weapon in Diem's head is more important than the weapon in her hands, even if it's magic. Quote, as long as you keep fighting, I know you can win. This brings back to our Glow episode 1, where Diem was in the royal cabin and called upon his advice for strength. Just got to put one foot in front of the other. He's reminding her that she still has training. She still has her smarts to use in this battle. He taught his children to wield weapons, absolutely. But more importantly, he taught them to use their brains to their advantage in battle, because that's really where the difference lies. During the challenge, Diem will do her best to outsmart Ron as she'll search for strategic moves, egg him on. After all, Andrei says that an emotional fighter is a sloppy fighter, and she will definitely use that to her advantage. And Diem will be thinking of her father and how proud he'd be as she'll get under Ron's skin and work him into a frenzy. That, and she's basically indestructible, but we'll get to all that later.
Knowing her father has always been, in a way, her advisor in matters of battle, Diem asks him formally here to join her crown's council. Not in private like he was for Ulthar, but out in the open and proudly as a member of the conversation to help prevent a war. Is she asking because she needs someone who she can trust in the room, who she can feel comfortable around? Dear God, yes. She needs someone in that room who she knows will not use her for political gain. But also, this is not just her appointing him because she needs her dad. He has proven time and time again that he is a military strategist. And as he said last book, his reasoning for accepting the role to go back into the army is so that he could keep the peace that Amarian has cultivated. Diem wants that type of attitude for military command. Someone who doesn't just jump to fight, kill, destroy, but instead works as hard as possible to ensure that as few lives as possible are lost.
In hindsight, this exchange is so painful because Andrei is right to seriously hesitate and at first decline the request to be advisor. He knows the tensions between the mortals and Descended very well, perhaps with a perspective that few mortals have with how much he has worked with the Descended. He understands what could ensue from him being in the house receptions and formally on her council. The Descended will hate it. I don't think he's making this choice out of fear for his life, but I definitely believe he recognizes the risk. It's the same line of thinking as Luther will share with Diem in chapter 20. Bringing Andrei on as advisor is dangerous for Diem's reputation, for her reign, for his life.
Well, and especially after today, where she wore a dress that basically said, I'm siding with the mortals. Bringing on a mortal advisor, a mortal war advisor, in a time of war where they are going against the mortals, it is so dangerous.
And it's also interesting because they also drafted him again to be a mortal leader against the mortals because the Descended can rely on Andrei. It kind of goes back to Diem being like, oh my God, maybe he is actually a puppet for the Descended, like Henry is saying. And so even though Andrei would be really the smartest choice for a mortal in that kind of position, even Luther will say it's a great idea, you know, theoretically.
This is not the time. Yeah.
But you don't realize that just because you put him into position doesn't mean there are not going to be consequences. Diem is still figuring out that balance of what she can do in her position of power and what is too dangerous to the point of that position of power being completely taken away from her. But Andrei loves his daughter so much. He wants to support her. He wants to continue to be the rock that she needs. So against his better judgment, he seals his fate and agrees to be her advisor. Because what father can turn his child down when they're begging for help and to have someone that they trust in their corner during the scariest and most unknown time in their life? He wants to be there for his girl, and he recognizes this is how she needs him. And even though he knows the consequences, he's like, okay, I will do this if it's what you really need.
However, Diem has one more offer for her father. What if he and Teller moved into the palace? My heart just breaks for Diem here because all she wants is some comfort in an wildly uncomfortable situation. Do I understand why her father doesn't want to stay? Yes, of course I do. He wants to be home for when Orly returns.
Oh, see, I considered that an excuse.
Oh,
And
really?
his real reason is understanding a mortal living in the palace is extremely dangerous. It's the same line of thinking about that advisor role. And he has to draw some line because he knows it's not in Diem's best political interest to bring her mortal father and brother here to the palace. He doesn't know this, but remember how she's supposed to pretend her father is a Corbois who died? And inviting her mortal father to come live here absolutely goes against that message, even if it is known that Andrei is not her birth father. This does not help with the whole, you are Corbois, so nobody should challenge you idea.
I didn't think about it that way, but I do think that that's his real reasoning, because I think that that's a showing of he is such a concerned husband and he misses his wife and he wants to be there the second Orly comes home so that he can ensure that she's okay. But yeah, I think maybe it could be a little bit of both.
It absolutely could be both. Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally get that's the romantic in you. I love it. I'm like,
Yeah.
I think that he knows the dangers.
You're
of-
like, what about the political game?
yeah, exactly.
But I want to add this to the list of things that are just so fucking painful in hindsight, because if he did come live at the palace, he might not have died. Unless the culprit was Gareth or Aean and co, because then he would have just been murdered right in the palace.
That's what I think.
Oh, really?
I think he and Teller both would have been killed in the palace so fast, whether by Remus and Gareth or another house finding their way to access. Like, it just is bringing them into the spotlight for the Descended.
Let's say, for instance, the Guardians are the one who actually killed Andrei in his mortal home. You're saying that if he had moved into the palace, it would have just been
The Descended.
possibly a different... Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
That's if it. There are too many
Possibly.
people who could have killed Andrei.
Oh,
and
Marthe
I
Conover
don't-
would have been so on top of this. She would have hired an assassin or something.
Ileana roams through the palace.
That's true.
I completely understand why Diem needs her family here.
Yeah.
And at the same time, she is only thinking with her emotions. She just heard how dangerous Remus and Gareth truly are and what other houses are capable of, like with poisoning loved ones to target the crown. And that's not even factoring in mortals. Diem should know better. Like, we were giving Eleanor a hard time earlier. Diem, you should really know better, but she can't think logically when she's so emotionally driven. I love how Andrei's such a dad who can sense what Luther is becoming to Diem, and more so, what she is becoming to him. Andrei doesn't pry at all, but he's also like, now it all makes sense, and only a way a father can say. Because remember how during their argument in Spark, Andrei confronted Diem about Luther's letter, and he said, quote, Luther Corbois is many things, but kind is not one of them. Well, he's starting to understand that might not actually be true, specifically when it comes to his daughter. Though that's not without his own hesitancies about Luther. Andrei's finding out that Luther knows where his wife is, and he's about to go up to Luther and drop the line, "Where is my wife?" And that, yes, his daughter thinks maybe she does trust Luther. Soon, so soon, she will give a simple answer of, yes, I do trust him, because we all know she wants to.
Wants to. Too soon, it is time for Andrei to leave, but he leaves in style. Alix, after getting some time to fangirl, at least in Alix's version of fangirl, which is incredibly calm, she holds her hands out, and just like that, Andrei is invisible. Holy shit! Alix having light magic, she can manipulate the light around her to create visual illusions. This is so cool. Don't get me wrong, I love shadow magic. Love it so much. But this is just useful.
It calls back to Diem's first impression of Alix at the first family meeting, where Diem's like, oh, Alix looks like the person you'd send in to assassinate a crown, and no one would ever know the wiser that it was her. And it's like, yeah, this could literally help her out do that. I'm not saying she would do that, but Yeah, nice little
could see
callback.
it.
When alone again, we get such a genuine conversation between Luther and Diem. She admitted to herself that she likes him last episode, and now she recognizes she really does trust him, and she's promising him safety as long as she is queen, which is the exact opposite of what she felt about him only a few days ago. Remember, she got the crown 4 days ago, when he was her number one target as a mortal child killer. She pushes him to give her brutal honesty about how bad the funeral was for her/their situation. And when Luther Corbois says, bad enough, after avoiding a question, you know it's real bad. But he's also already in solutions mode. No time to dwell on what happened. We just got to move forward to get Diem these good impressions, as she needs to overwrite her first really bad impression with the other Lumnos descended.
All right, I have a question for you. As he's telling Diem just how bad shit has gotten, he mentions how no matter what, he promises her she will not die. Do you think that this is where he got the idea of challenging her, or at least like challenging her as a last resort? Because I do.
I never thought of that. I was under the impression he decided to challenge her when he learns about the bonded bargain with his father, and that him challenging Diem makes his father lose his magic, and it would ensure Diem survives.
Oh, see, I don't think he's thinking about Remus at all.
Not right here, but
Well, no, like when he decides to challenge Diem, I don't think he's thinking about Remus at all.
But remember, like, how he kind of lights up and he's like, wait, what did you just say, when she does share about the bonded bargain?
I think that just cements in his mind that his idea is like, oh, well, that's a nice perk I didn't think about.
Interesting. Agree to disagree.
Okay, agree to disagree.
I think right now he's in ultimate damage control mode, while doing his best to respect Diem's wishes, like having her father be advisor, because her vision for the future is exactly what Luther supports, but that vision also puts a target on her back, which is not what he wants, and he's just like, we can't win here, can we?
With these two alone, it takes only so long before we have officially entered tension time. During their conversation, Diem realizes how closely they are standing. Quote, too close. Not close enough. Damn straight. After a moment of Luther holding her wrists to his chest, kinky, long enough to make Diem imagine that dominant grip on other parts of her body, his hand slides up her forearms to her elbows and then to her waist, pulling her ever so slightly towards him. All without breaking their gaze. But after Diem's traitorous body has her licking her lips, his gaze moves more hungrily. His hands trace the low open back. Resting his hands scandalously low, he hooks his fingers on the edge of the fabric. Now their faces are so close, their noses are basically touching. I'm not breathing. Penn Cole, you are the master of tension. Oh my God. And we're not even to the foot massage yet. But as Diem thinks, there's nothing safe about this strong attraction she has with Luther. Flirting with Taryn or Aemon, those are harmless. It's just her being sassy or whatever. But Luther, the passion, the connection, the unbreaking of the eye gazing, and the pull that they have with one another, it's unlike anything she's ever known. From the mating conversation, we highlighted how Diem is not one for commitment. And while yes, that is true, more specifically, she is not one for feeling out of control with her own emotions. Remember how she never learned how to regulate those thanks to Flameroot dulling them.
I'll add that she's never thought of her body as an extension of passion, if that makes sense. Sure, she's had sex and enjoyed it, but she thinks of her body as utilitarian. And now her body has a mind of its own. It feels a spark. There's sexual tension. And she's experiencing physical proximity in a way she never has, or even thought possible.
And in this moment with Luther's body pressing against hers, them literally a moment away from making out, she doesn't feel like she can fully pull away. But she also can't keep standing on the edge like this. So, much to his surprise, she wraps her arms around him and hugs him. I love this. I love this so much. One of the things I just enjoy the crap out of in any romance is when the two lovers become friends first. And Diem and Luther are highly attracted to each other. There's no doubt about that. But in moments like this, she's choosing to be platonic-ish in a manner with him, and that's just really nice.
It's like making herself shove him into a platonic box and he doesn't fit. Ha! That's what she said.
Damn straight. And he meets her where she's at, wrapping his arms around her like it's the most normal thing in the world. He strokes her hair with one hand and the other pulls her in tight at her waist. Oh! In this much safer position, Diem has the courage to ask Luther a question. Why is he helping her so much? And she's not going to take an answer of because of her mother, their previous missions. It's not because of the Corbois family, and especially not because of the crown. It's time to give her the truest reason. To which he says, quote, I wish, ... I can't. And then they are interrupted by a knock at the door. What do you think he was going to say? Because I'm leaning towards, like, I wish I could tell you, or I can't tell you.
I think a variation of that.
Yeah.
I wondered if he's stumbling over his words, not knowing how to tell her you're not ready to know, and he is very aware he can't say that.
Oh, yeah. If anything, this knock at the door, it prevents a fight for them.
Definitely. With Taryn and Eleanor's interruption, I just want to take a second to appreciate how the Kindred's Curse saga balances difficult societal themes and character development with lightheartedness and found family. Glow of the Everflame in particular, and I'll even say especially this stretch of chapters, has some truly hilarious moments, and I'll even say immature moments. And I don't say that in a bad way at all. Rather, it's interactions that remind us this younger generation may have big goals and carry a lot of weight on their shoulders, but they can still be playful. They can still find opportunities to laugh and make good-natured jokes and be silly together. I think that's a very important element in the found family trope, because as a found family, you can be your whole self. You can be serious together, sad, ambitious, and silly, which all rolls into how healing found family can be for someone who feels so isolated and alone. The scene with Taryn, Eleanor, Luther, and Diem is a perfect example. Diem desperately needed to hear Taryn and Eleanor express their full support of her. Eleanor even says, "You're one of us now." And it makes Diem realize how wrong she had been about her generalization of descended. The majority of them may be snakes, dangerously prejudiced against mortals, and hope for her demise. They're not objectively good people, but there are wonderful descended too, descended to be friends with. In a society where bloodlines and strength of power are of the utmost importance, Diem has found people who actively choose her to bring her into their inner circle and accept her. She is someone with one foot in the descended world and the other in the mortal world. She has struggled with her own identity so much these past few days, and I'll even say these past few months, since she went off the flame route and doesn't recognize her own emotional regulation. And here people are saying, we see you, we support you, we care about you, we trust you, we know you are worthy, we are loyal to you. It's the beginning of feeling a sense of belonging that, quite frankly, Diem has never felt, even in the mortal world. Like Nicole mentioned earlier, Diem's love language is teasing and banter, and it's also being accepted for who she is. Familiarity and comfort, a sense of belonging, is what she needs most. We've talked about that endlessly when it comes to Henry. And all of that is exactly what the scene is about, as Taryn and Eleanor offer that assurance to Diem after what happened at the funeral. She needs this assurance from them so badly, just like she needed it from her father and from Teller and all of that, yeah.
But what's this? Tonight, it turns out that there is a dinner that the young Corbois cousins are hosting. And Diem, let's just say, after this morning, it might be very, very wise for you to join. First off, it's an opportunity for her to start stacking up those 7 better impressions. Secondly, the sooner the Corbois start seeing her as the queen versus the joke they believe her to be, the better. And thirdly, this is a group of young, cool Corbois. They have friends of similar ages in other houses. If she is able to change their minds and make them respect her, the more likely the ripple effect for them to tell the other members of other houses to, hey, this queen's actually kind of great. I personally think, though, Taryn's not thinking about the political game at all. He is 100% looking at Diem to be there at dinner so he can play wingman for his boy Luther. But Diem is going to think about it. After all, today has been a lot. She's had a major fashion embarrassment, a faux pas, if you will, and she had a near panic attack in front of thousands of people. And the last thing she wants is to be near those people again.
Like what we were saying earlier, I don't blame her in the slightest.
No.
I would have disappeared for 3 to 5 business days. Or just left the country, to be honest. Like, I realize this might sound silly of me, but, like, I am absolutely petrified of public speaking. I'm getting better about
You're
it.
doing so good.
Because it's kind of part of my job. But I would be absolutely mortified if something that disastrous happened. Oh my God.
I remember I think it was middle school, I was part of a talent show and I had a section of the song and I forgot the lyrics on stage and I got so nervous and I just like mumbled the entire time through and I left and I wanted to leave the country, but I didn't because I was 12, so... That was great. I hated that time. It's fine. It doesn't still haunt my nightmares. It's fine.
Hold up, though, Luther boy, because Diem has an unresolved bone to pick with you. Luther was particularly rude to Eleanor about the black dress mishap at the funeral. And while we at Fantasy Fangirls stand behind Luther's reaction to this honest mistake, and no, not only so Nicole can look at his bootay as she stands behind him, Diem strongly disagrees with how Luther handled the situation and made Eleanor feel less than. Diem knows that Eleanor is good at her job as advisor of court and culture, and she has been in Eleanor's corner to help lift her up and give her the opportunity Eleanor deserves. So this whole knocking Eleanor down thing is not okay in her book. Damn it, when I say it like that, now I feel bad for standing behind Luther.
I know, I do too.
Because girl power always.
Yeah.
And same with doing your job right. I'm so sorry. Diem won't let that kind of treatment toward her friend and advisor slide. I'm so glad she can't listen to this episode. So guess what, Luther? You need to apologize to Eleanor.
It is my job as the romantic on the podcast to pull out this quote from Luther. Quote, "With all due respect to my lovely cousin, the only person I'm getting down on my knees for is you, my queen." I am screaming.
While this whole interaction about making Luther get down on his knees to say sorry.
The knees are back!
Use Eleanor's full titles and grovel. It's that humor shining through when it's needed in the story. This is also a big moment as the second most powerful descendant in Lumnos has to beg forgiveness to a weaker descendant. Now we know Luther and understand that's not crossing his mind here because he's not prejudiced against the less powerful. But it is symbolic of Diem's reign as the equalizer, as the one to lift the less powerful up, whether they're descended or mortal. She believes in and expects forgiveness and kindness no matter who it is. That's the kind of person and leader she is. Diem knows that Eleanor wouldn't have done this on purpose, and it was indeed an honest mistake. And like I said earlier, now Eleanor knows just how little Diem knows, and that she does have to help Diem from this level 0.
More on that in a moment. As the cousins turn to leave, Luther included, an urge comes over Diem. She strips Luther naked and has her way with him. Not yet. I just needed to make sure you all were paying attention. No, instead, she pulls him in and gives him a quick kiss on the cheek. The kiss is showing of appreciation for him bringing her father to the palace, for him being such a good sport with Eleanor, and is showing that her favor is well on its way to being earned. And now he can claim officially, truthfully, that she kissed him.
Oh girl, you like him, you think he's sexy, you want to kiss him more.
But Luther, playing the game right beside her, snakes his hand up her back, his fingers twisting at the hair of her nape and tugs it. And I quote, "If a kiss is my reward, my queen, I will get on my knees for you whenever you want." Oh my God! If this were to have been uttered to my face, I would have been like, "Goodbye, Henry. I choose this Pikachu."
Sorry, Henry who? I don't know who you're talking about. Nicole, now I know why this episode is so long. This isn't even the foot massage thing yet.
But no, it's Diem. And instead we get a little more recognition for this feeling inside her. She knows she is in very big trouble. The best kind of trouble, if you ask me.
Fast forward a few hours and we've got Diem in bed surrounded by half-eaten chocolate, and she's 3 fingers deep in whiskey.
You know, I got curious what 3 fingers of whiskey was in shots. 1 finger equates typically to 1 to 1.5 ounces. So, and it's been a really hard day for Diem. So we're going to say that each finger is 1.5 ounce. So she had 4.5 ounces of whiskey. In a US shot, that's about 1.5 ounces. So she's had roughly 3 shots or a little over 2 old fashions.
Anyway, Diem is debating whether she should go to this cousin dinner. Nicole listed off all the reasons she doesn't want to go, which, don't worry, girl, those are very valid reasons. But she also knows not going feels cowardly, and Diem never wants to come off as cowardly. She faces her battles head on, and a battle this young cousin's dinner party would be, which has her realizing damn it, maybe I should go. It's an opportunity for Diem to stand back up, dust herself off, and keep her head high to show these descendants that she is stronger than they think.
But again, what will she wear? I always think of that scene from The Grinch where he's like, oh, ow. That's it. I'm not going. Like, that's like all I think of here.
And Sarai is Max the dog.
Exactly. After all, this morning was a disaster, so this outfit must be perfect. Listen, I told you I was going to come back to this. Eleanor, come on! Like, at the funeral, Diem mentions to Eleanor that this little fashion error made Eleanor a better advisor because now going forward, she would be more likely to consider what might have gone overlooked. You know what she didn't do? Give Diem any idea what to wear to this cousin's dinner. One where she would need to have the perfect outfit to provide one of those 7 new impressions. Eleanor, girl!
I am absolutely in agreement with you, and giving Eleanor the benefit of the doubt, they only invited Diem to dinner. So they did not know for sure whether Diem was going to go.
But she didn't stop by her room. She didn't stop by her room. She didn't go and make sure she was coming. Nothing.
Or, yeah, she probably should have gone to her room, like, as she was herself going and was like, hey, just if you do decide to come, here's a few good outfits that would be good to give her that extra confidence. Yeah. But at the same time, from a character development perspective, I get it.
Yes.
Diem is a fierce, independent woman, as we all know, and she is trying to balance standing on her own and making her own decisions, in addition to not fucking everything up with her good-intentioned but bad outcome decisions.
Yes, I think from a storytelling perspective, this is exactly how it should have gone. With Eleanor not giving her advice, Diem turns to the advice that she should have taken this morning. Sarai, or Max from The Grinch. Diem holds 3 long dresses, all in a muted gray and navy. I love that she starts with 3 dresses that are 1000% in her comfort zone. They're muted and modest.
And in line with what mortals wear. Remember how vibrant colors for mortals is bad. They live in muted tones because our culture is rooted in blending in.
But Sarai says no to those 2 options. So take 2. Brighter color dresses, but still modest. A little less out of her comfort zone, and Sarai does not even bother to look before she hoofs. Fine, let's jokingly go in the opposite direction. Diem reaches for the most inappropriate thing she could find in her closet. It's made out of a scrap of emerald satin. The entire dress barely covers her breasts with a draped neckline, and the hem is so high that it barely covers her ass. And the whole thing is held together entirely by strategically placed, fragile, delicate chains. Who has fan art of this? But Sarai trills with a and it's Grivern approved.
I love the role that clothing plays in this book, not just for how important fashion is for outward appearances, but also how Diem leverages clothing and connects with herself more through it. Wearing this barely there dress requires a whole new level of confidence. At first, she feels out of her element in this descended dress. No mortal would ever wear this because their culture is all about blending in, like I was saying earlier. And for Diem, her body has always been a tool to meet her needs. She's never thought of it as something to be admired, not even with her lovers, including Henry. On the other hand, descended culture is all about standing out. So Diem is learning how to use this fashion to her own advantage with her self-esteem and appearance. The woman staring back at her in the mirror is sexy. She is fearsome. She is confident in her own skin. She carries herself as a crown, like it's always been hers to wield, caring nothing about the judgment of others. I love this for her because she needs this confidence boost. And sure, it's a little fake it till you make it. It's a lot fake it till you make it, to be honest. But this feels like dress up for Diem, where the outlandish fashion helps her put on this persona and pretend. And jumping ahead a little bit here, once when Diem does arrive to the dinner party, she will feel plain and self-conscious again. But she immediately changes her tune and is like, no, I am the queen, and there is no spotlight I can't steal. I don't need to play their fashion games. She owns it.
With a layer of alcohol confidence, Diem heads into the dining room with 50 young and beautiful Corbois cousins, all seated along a narrow dining table or laughing near a stocked bar. And it looks like Sarai's outfit choice was unsurprisingly perfect. Many are wearing sexy dresses, putting so much of their skin on display. Men are shirtless, ornamented with chains and leather straps, or armored in specific places. Whoa. And one person came in their birthday suit, using their shadow magic to strategically cover their intimate areas. Imagine walking into a room where every single person is trying to outdo one another in some which way. This sounds like my musical theater college experience. As soon as Luther sees Diem, he shoots to his feet. Sadly, he is not shirtless, but instead he is in a finely made version of his usual outfit. And boy, he is enjoying the sight before him. His lips part as he looks Diem up and down. The heat and hunger in his games sears Diem from even across the room. But wait, who is that? Iléana is seated right next to Luther at the far end of the table. Boo! I love how Eleanor is like, we can move him closer to you. That's not a problem. Earlier, Eleanor saw peeks into how Luther and Diem are together. She's even confronted Diem about how Luther keeps smiling at her. But I bet she's looking over at Luther sitting with Iléana and is like confused. She's like, what the fuck?
Oh, I think she's a little defensive of her cousin because she knows Luther isn't into Iléana, especially now that Diem's around. And she's like, okay, but I promise, Diem, this is not how it looks.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yes, and I do not blame Diem for downing her next glass of wine upon seeing Iléana sitting next to Luther. Absolutely not. Her and Luther just shared a very intense moment, and he was one of 3 people who invited her to dinner, insisting that it would be good. And then she sees him sitting next to his ex, who's trying to not be his ex. Not without getting into the whole story. I've been in a situation like this before, and trust me, there was no Aean working the strings in the background to strategically place the two together. The dude was just a fuckboy who sat next to his ex-girlfriend.
I was gonna say, who the fuck do I have to beat up here?
Talk to So I do not blame her for being angry or jealous. I would have been like, this fucking asshole. It's fine. I'm older. I'm wiser.
But guess who else is here? Aean. Obviously, he's an important younger Corbois who would, of course, be at this dinner. And he is happy that Diem is here as he puts his plan to ally with her straight into action. We know from Eleanor how power-hungry and ambitious Aean is. And he has his eye on the prize. A new, young, beautiful queen can raise him up to king consort. So he is smoozing like no other. He is flirting with Diem. He is separating her from the friends she's made. So he is her only ally among these vipers. He's making himself useful to her and showing off that he's in her corner, which he certainly does know how much she needs. But what we won't learn until chapter 37 from Taryn and Alix is how much Aean is playing Diem right here. Because for all his talk about how rude it is for Luther to invite Iléana tonight and how much Aean dislikes Iléana, it's all a bunch of bullshit. The truth is, Aean and Iléana are very close friends and are working together tonight to drive Diem and Luther apart. Aean is actually the one who invited Iléana, obviously not Luther like he's telling Diem. I bet as soon as Eleanor told Aean she invited Diem, he went to Iléana and was like, we've got an opportunity! And this plan to keep them apart almost works. Or rather, it does work at the dinner, and then they're just not around for the next part. Iléana wants Luther, so she's got him cornered. And she's just all over him. And Aean wants Diem. So step 1, keep Luther and Diem separated. And step 2, keep nurturing this narrative of how terrible a person Luther is and how little he cares for Diem. Just like Aean did a few days ago when he told Diem that Luther is the keeper of the laws and upholder of the progeny laws. He knows exactly how to play on Diem's emotions.
Aean. L. Bad. 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 L for you, sir. And another 2 L's for how much he lies to Diem about Luther must have invited her. Oh, unseemly to invite an outsider if you have to. 3 L's. 3 L's.
Racking those out.
Bad.
It's so funny because, I kind of forgot until this deep dive, how bad Aean is and how much of this persona he is. And I am just...
Remember that one time you were like, I don't know, I think Aean could be good.
Yeah. And just like last time, Diem falls right into the trap, just like
So
I
does
did with
Lexi.
every episode. Because she's under the impression Aemon is showing his whole hand. He is making his own ambitions painfully obvious to Diem, and she takes that as the entire truth, when really, he is working behind the scenes with Ileana and playing on Diem's emotions. And Diem is grasping at reasons to justify running away from Luther, to reframe him as the bad guy. Because if Luther is not the villain, Diem is terrified of letting her guard down and accepting her true feelings for him. After all, she's a betrothed woman. Why should she care about who Luther's with tonight?
As Aemon announces Diem's arrival, she immediately asks everyone to call her by her first name, Diem, rather than Your Majesty. She may be putting on the face for everyone of someone who is confident and walking into this room with her head held high, but this is so out of her comfort zone, and rather than a power move, she decides to do this. Remember last book when Luther told her that calling someone by their titles was a way to set the tone for their interaction? Here, Diem just told a whole room of people who she needs to gain their respect before the end of the night, who she wants them to view her as the queen. By the end of this dinner, she just told them to call her by her name rather than the title she wants them to view her as.
And they will take advantage of it.
Yeah, of course they do.
As far as they're concerned, this is a sign of weakness. The queen doesn't want to be considered a queen. Then guess what? She's beneath them. Poor Diem. She is both uncomfortable with being called the queen and at the same time trying to prove herself as the queen. I understand why she led with this, but I also want to shake her and say, own it!
But move away, Aemon. It's time for the royal advisor to step in, who we've been very mean to this episode, but we're going to get into being nicer to her now. Eleanor comes up to Diem and offers some words of advice in how to play this evening right. And I will admit, this is great advice. She's showing why she has this role in the first place. This group of Corbois grew up around the crown and other power, so they're not going to be subservient just because she's wearing the crown alone. They're going to test her, poke her. They're going to try to get her to break. But Diem, do not take the bait. Do not get angry. Oh dear, that is not Diem's strong suit. Instead, show them that you are the apex predator. They can either fall in line and be in your good graces, or they can become your prey. Basically, Diem needs to remind them that they are the ones being tested, and if they don't pass, she will make their lives a living hell during her reign. This Diem can do, especially with some liquid courage. Starting now. With conversation around the room returning to normal, the cousins are clearly not impressed that the queen has just joined them. Diem perches her right foot on her seat, her fingers skimming up her leg, showing her full naked thigh, all while Aemon watches in his seat next to her. Aemon, perfect. The very popular Corbois is an excellent choice of showing a little power towards. So Diem asks him if he can help getting this pesky dagger off. She doesn't want it to snag on a chain after all. 3 cheers for Diem, who just earlier was worried about having too much skin on display or like feeling out of her comfort zone. I know she's playing a role here. I'm still so proud with how she's handling this. It's so great. Aemon tells her to come a little closer and he'll take a look. But skirt! Did he just give her a command? Brah, this is her showing of power, not yours. Whether it was Aemon misreading her act or him showing his true colors for a moment and then he saw his error, I don't know. But he quickly corrects himself and he says that he doesn't want to nick her pretty skin.
I love genuinely having no idea which reason it is for Aemon to correct himself. I am leaning toward the latter. He let his true colors show and he corrected himself because I am still very angry at him about the whole Ileana working together situation. And Diem's falling into his trap. Limited narration at its finest whenever Aemon is on the page, to the point where even us readers are like, he is a snake, but then he's also useful. And it's like our brains don't know what to think about him because he's not coming off as black and white.
He is a master manipulator, like almost scarily so. Oh, I can't wait to see where his arc goes. So, with Diem's ass perched on the edge of the table, Diem puts her foot between his open thighs. Pause. I cannot be the only one who was curious about the underwear situation in this scene. If this is such a high hemline and she has one foot in a chair, which I don't think is going to be a super low chair, like it'd probably be like a midpoint chair, wouldn't her underwear just be completely on display? But also there's so many cutouts replaced with chains, so would she be even wearing underwear in the first place? But that's just playing with fire, if you ask me. This is not the last time I'm going to be talking about underwear watch.
This is a really good point.
Thank you.
What do you think? Do we include this with the boob question for Pen?
Yes. You mean the guards with their outfits and the boob popping out?
Yes!
I was like, which boob question? I feel like we've had multiple. Anyway, Aean, ever the flirt, traces his palms all the way up her leg until they are pressing against her inner thigh. Hello! What I would give to be in Luther's head at this moment. I'm shocked Aean still has a head after this moment.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little like overkill, Diem. Overkill.
Oh, really?
Whenever I read this part, it's all part of the game. I know that. And she will think at one point, like, where, you know, flirting with Taryn or Aean feels very innocent compared to Luther. But given her love life context, I don't know. I don't often say I feel cringe because you all know how much I love this book and her character. But that is kind of how I feel about this situation. Yeah.
I love this scene. I love this scene so much. Anyway, naughty, naughty cousin, just take the knife, not the inner thighs. So once Aemon's hands take her dagger and hand it to her, it's time for the real reason behind this little showing. Diem spins around like lightning speed and slams the dagger into the table, splitting the wood and rattling the dishes. The room goes utterly silent, but the Corbois are now assessing her with a newfound curiosity. I think this is brilliant. I'm like, oh my God, like what a great way to demand everyone's attention with one of the most popular people in the room, and then to make herself look like this apex predator that this guy who has a hell of a lot of power, he cannot, it's almost like he can't control her, which is good.
Okay, when you put it that way, that is a really good point.
Yes.
Yes.
All
Okay,
about
I like that
who's
way
the
of
number
thinking.
one
Yes.
in the room.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Aeon kind of placed himself as number one by her side when he introduced her and himself. And I think that this is her saying, no, I'm above this bitch.
Okay. Yep, I can see that. Absolutely. Let's go through some of the highlights from the rest of this cousin dinner party. Diem has to defend herself with her dress choice from earlier today, explaining that black is a sign of respect in the mortal world where she grew up. She'll share harmless stories from her life as a mortal without revealing too much personal info later on in the evening, which I love that she shines some light on what it's like to live as a mortal. I bet none of these descended have ever heard this much about living as a mortal. And I'm not saying she's changing minds, but she's humanizing the mortals to this younger descended generation, which is so needed.
This is not to be overlooked because this is at the point in the evening where both Luther and Iléana have left, and the younger Corbois start asking her questions about being a mortal. This is huge. This behavior with questions about Diem's upbringing shows us that the cousins are curious about this different way of life. Curious does not mean hatred. Curious means that they have minds opened up to the possibility of hopefully seeing things from a mortal's POV. She can work with this.
Absolutely. And I agree with you about that curiosity. And I think that there is that whole level of like, oh, you grew up with mortals. And at the same time, they are still asking.
And it's the fact that it's after Luther has left, after the keeper of the laws has left. So they think it's safe to suddenly ask the questions. Also, it's after Iléana has left, a person who's from a house who is very anti-mortal. So it's showing that once the situation is, I'm going to say, safe for them to talk about it, they are genuinely curious. This cannot be overstated how big of a deal this is.
Yeah. Diem also has to defend herself from earlier today at the funeral for not using her magic to light the pyre. Both of these topics with the black dress and the not using her magic, they were inevitable. And a reason why Diem knew she did have to come to this dinner, to start changing the impression she left earlier, with some support from Luther, who assures the cousins that her magic is by no means insufficient, and that's a fact, not praise. Luther, he's doing his best to support her from afar, while Iléana clings to him. Later on on during this party, Diem will accidentally on purpose spill wine on a cousin's lap when she offers to take bets on the challenging. As Eleanor will say after the dinner, these cousins may not like Diem, but they think she's a vicious little beast. And in the descended world where it's so cutthroat and strength means power and respect, Diem can work with that.
Like many conversations with Diem, focus turns to the color of her eyes and how they are mysteriously gray. I love the moment where Diem says that children used to tease her for it, and the gray eyes meant, quote, I had no soul and 8 newborn babes to stay young. And then when a smartass cousin is like, were those statements true? Our queen smirks and urges them all to cross her and they'll find out. Again, I'm so proud of her. Like, look at how she is playing the game after a disaster of a morning.
This also goes back to really how Glow is paced, right? Diem has a real bad fumble, and then she recovers from it. Last episode, it was all the Henry stuff. And then she was able to come back on her own 2 feet with her conversation with Remus. Now we have the disaster that was the funeral and her coming back here at dinner.
And while I'm mentioning her playing the game, there's this moment where they're talking about scars, and Diem says that she got one from climbing rocks. And then when Ethylene looks down on her for such quaint activity, again, that us versus them is on full display, Diem mentions how it's good for finger strength and then makes a neck strangling motion.
That is not the finger strength I initially thought of until...
Overall, Diem at this dinner, she dunks on Iliana, she holds her own against a family, and she shows that she cannot be fucked with. Brava. It's amazing. But going back to this eyes conversation, when Luther says that her eyes came from Blessed Mother Lumnos herself because Lumnos had gray eyes, Diem's like, alarm, alarm, alarm. This is the first time Diem is hearing this huge information. She still doesn't know all of the kindred had gray eyes, but hello, this is a major clue for us readers that Diem is not a normal descendant necessarily. Instead, we can assume she is directly from a kindred who didn't give up their gift to an offspring for a specific eye color like Lumnos and like the rest of the main 9 kindred. I have a question for you though. Does he know that Lumnos had gray eyes because of the visions he had from Lumnos, which sounded like she appeared in front of him? Or did he read about it somewhere? Or both?
But I assume both, because I feel like this would be relatively common knowledge about the kindred having their gray eyes, because then it was the foraging spell that then cemented that all of their children would have certain eye colors. So I'm under the impression it's a little bit more common knowledge. Maybe not common enough where it's taught at the descended school, because I can absolutely imagine Teller hearing that like in his classroom and be like, the fuck? Oh my God. So maybe not to that extent, but for someone who is devout to Lumnos, I think that this would be pretty easy information.
I think you're right on it. I think that, like as Aean says, Luther is quite the devout little disciple, which he's talking about demeaningly. We can assume that many descended aren't to Luther's level when it comes to devotion. And I do think you're right that when it comes to that level of devotion, that information would not be super hit.
Diem accidentally lets slip that in Luther's private chambers, he has a bust of Lumnos. Not a statue, everybody. Come on now. AKA, Diem has been in Luther's bedroom to see this for herself. Yeah. And we all know what usually happens in bedrooms. Nicole, what usually happens in bedrooms? I thought you were going to go into the bang, 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 bang.
Oh.
But yes, that too. All of that. Yes.
Not in this book for a while.
So anyway, Mayday, Mayday, Aean and Ileana's plan is not working. What the fuck does Diem mean she's been in Luther's bedroom? And later, cousins will chime in that these two would be a smart pairing. Nice little subtle dig at Aean, who has weak magic, that Luther and Diem would be a great match because they would be the most powerful couple the realm had ever seen. Not something anyone would ever say about Aean and Diem. So in this moment, Aean jumps into damage control to regain control of the situation again, because he needs to keep putting this wedge between Luther and Diem. But damn it, why are they so drawn to each other? Not because they're already mates, as Penn said, but you know,
rub it in.
Because of Lumnos and all that, and then they ultimately love each other. I get it. I promise I'm romantic. However, Aean knows how to make Luther out to be the bad guy to Diem as he plays on her emotions. He brings up Luther being the keeper of the laws again. And friends, that is definitely on purpose right after she mentions being in his bedroom. And it works. again, even though Diem knows better with the half-mortal children now, thank goodness, but there are so many other laws that Luther has assumably upheld that are anti-mortal and unjust. And like I said earlier, Diem clings to anything bad she hears about Luther because she does not want to like or trust him, despite all roads pointing to him being a good guy, except around Aean. And she leans into it because it's what she wants to hear in a twisted way. She doesn't actively know she wants to hear it, but she really does. She craves that so that she can have a worse image of Luther and shield her heart.
Ah, but these cousins, they've already latched onto this topic of seeing Diem and Luther as quite a match these two would make. Two incredibly powerful descended. Luther, you must be vying for the queen's hand in marriage. Ah, nice try, Tyrus and Velis. Luther knows how to play the game better than most. He admits that the queen's consort is not for him to decide and that she will choose whatever she wants. Wonderful answer. Great answer. Yes, huzzah! Especially considering who she's betrothed to. It's that nice little showing that even with a mortal consort, he will stand by her side. But Luther, oh, Luther, he does not stop there. He says, quote, "As for me, my interests lie in serving my queen, not in marrying her." Liar! Liar! Pens on fire! Why did Luther feel the need to say this? He could just be feeling jealous and angry, just like Diem is, because of how she's interacting with Aean. That's what I'm thinking.
Well, but hold on, because Luther will explain himself later, right? Like, marrying her isn't enough. And it calls back to the conversation at the funeral about how marriage is about strategic alliances, aka using people.
I took that speech at the Ascension Ball as he tried to not want any part of her. He tried to not make her feel like he was vying for her hand in marriage like Aean is, but he realized after this evening that he couldn't keep doing that.
Okay, so I guess it's the way that marriage is interpreted here.
Yeah.
Because Luther, when he thinks about the whole strategic alliances, the gain for power, the using of marriage that it is traditionally founded in for the Corbois family, that makes Luther be like, no, that's not what I want from her. He doesn't want marriage, he wants mating. Yeah. But serving her is the highest honor because it's not out of using her. It's devoting his whole self to her, which, cough, cough, is exactly what the mating bond requires.
Ah, okay. I enjoy that. You know what else I enjoy? The fact that next episode we're getting that speech and I'm going to be absolutely feral for it.
Diem doesn't see it this way at all because marriage to her in the mortal world is the epitome of commitment and love. So what she's hearing from Luther is, I don't want to love you and spend our life together. And considering her feelings for him, she is very poorly and trying to convince herself she does not have. Diem is sincerely hurt by his statement that, from her perspective, as well as the other cousins, he does not see her in that way and never will. I can absolutely understand her hurt, especially with Aean whispering in her ear all evening about how awful Luther is, and with Iliana hanging off Luther, unable to keep her hands off him. And again, with Aean encouraging that narrative of Luther having affection for Iliana as often as he can. It's poisoning Diem's mind. Plus, she's drunk, and all too eager to accept this narrative about someone she is passionately pulled to, when there's guilt for feeling that way about a descendant, especially this keeper of the laws, and of course the biggie, Henry. She accepted his marriage proposal after all, even though she won't outright admit it to herself. Diem knows that was a mistake for so many reasons. Actually, she is starting to admit it to herself, being like, he and I have some very serious conversations coming up, and it's like, yes. Yeah, you think?
Aean seizes this opportunity, jumping in how he's extremely interested in serving Diem in every way possible. Shoot your shot, my guy. But this was, look, we've given Aean some L's. We're not done giving him L's.
You gave him a triple L.
I gave him a triple
He deserved
L.
it.
He's really smart. He probably could see that Diem was hurt by Luther's words, and Aean swooped in, making her seem desirable and a hot commodity to the people that she wants to seem desirable and a hot commodity, not in a sexual way or not in a romantic way, but Aean is saying, hey, she's desirable. We want her here. He's one complex motherfucker, don't get me wrong. On one hand, I want to punch him in the face for how he and Iliana are driving a wedge between Luther and Diem, but on the other hand, he is being really great, even to the point where Eleanor will say that later, too. He helped steer the conversation into safer waters throughout the dinner when they drifted a little too close to the sun. Or when Diem accidentally says mortal sayings, he comes in and says something even more outrageous to distract the crowd. He really stood by her side tonight on a night that she needed it more than anything.
Yes. And with all that said, it is entirely for his own selfish reasons.
Oh, absolutely.
But his selfish reasons are, in some ways, in Diem's best interest, so she allows them, for lack of a better term, yeah.
And as much as I wish she had sat by Luther, and I bet she wished she'd sat by Luther, he is a stony man. He is intimidating to the cousins. Aean is popular. Aean made her one of the popular kids tonight, and she needed that. She needed someone like Aean on her side, or by her side, like you're saying. It's a very selfish side, but it's a side nonetheless. And then there's this whole other, end of the coin. As much as I hate to admit, for his selfish motives, he's a fucking genius. He invited Iliana, which put a wedge of distrust between Luther and Diem. Now he's placing her at his sides, saying that he has interest in her hand in marriage. He's making himself seem like the better option.
But then Iliana and Luther apparently leave together. I think Luther left because he could not stand Aean and what he was doing anymore, and he didn't want to witness it. And Luther needed to get away from Iliana. She was just getting to be too much, especially in front of Diem. While Diem's under the impression right now that they did leave together to go be alone, we will find out very soon that Luther goes to escape from Iliana by hiding in Lily's room, and all he'll do is gush about how Diem is meant to be queen and how well she held her own here at this dinner. Only when Lily shares this with Diem will Diem finally realize how not into Iliana Luther is, no matter how much she tries to convince herself of them together for her own heart's safety. Egg on your face, Diem. After the party, the night's not over, though, because Luther is outside Diem's chambers, demanding to speak with her alone. He won't let Aean planting the seeds of doubt about Luther's true nature and intentions grow overnight. He's got to nip this in the bud.
But someone catches Diem's eye among her guards. Perth! Perth is re-entering our story! In the 5 days since the armory fire, Perth went to Fortos. He was healed, and then he traveled back to Lumnos, learned that Diem was queen, and then was appointed to her royal guard. Boy's been busy! Even though he is a Bonnet and not a Corbois, Luther granted his request to be a part of Diem's royal guard. Perth, upon learning that the woman who pulled him out of a burning building was the crown, he wanted to repay the debt to Diem for saving his life, even when his family and friends didn't. Who doesn't love a loyal Perth, at least in this moment? It's Luther.
He's in such a bad mood right now after what happened with Iliana and it giving Diem the wrong impression, and what all Aean was making very clear, especially as he purposefully made himself look better than Luther. All Luther wants is for Diem to understand his true motives, even if he can't share everything with her.
I don't hold it against Luther for being pissed, but maybe be less of an ass to the guards specifically. He was set up tonight when he was placed to sit by Iliana after inviting Diem, and he could tell and probably feel through the aura bond that she was feeling all kinds of weird about it.
Oh, that's right. I didn't even think about Luther being able to sense Diem's aura. Yeah.
So especially if she's a little drunk. So I think that also her heightened emotions, because, that's what happens when we're a little inebriated sometimes. And I bet anything he could feel like the pings of jealousy or, like the fury of anger, stuff like that. Then when he said something that had Aean coming back saying that Aean wanted to marry her, and Diem giggled with him. Point blank, he is just as jealous as she was. What to do, though, about that jealousy? How interesting. What to do, indeed. Buckle up, everyone, because it's time to go beat by beat!
I'm just going to sit back. I'm going to mute myself and enjoy. I'm very excited.
As Diem is walking into her room, she's attempting to hold her head high because, remember, she's mad at him, but the heel of her shoe catches on the edge of the rug, and Diem ungracefully begins to fall towards the ground. Alcohol and heels are not the best combo. Tell that to my college self. Just before she eats shit, Luther scoops her up midair, and before she has time to right herself in the spinning room, her back is hitting the springing mattress of the bed. A few of those tiny chains snapping on impact, and Luther is towering over her, standing between her legs where they hang off the bed, and he has one word for her in a demanding tone: foot. Yes, sir. Bringing her foot slowly up his leg, his thigh, then pausing at his waist before she continues her foot motion up his chest, and then she digs her high heel into the space just above his heart. Ow. His large hand closes around her ankle and yanks it so it's over his shoulder. Then, without breaking her stare, you're going to hear me say that a lot, he grabs her waist and drags her body towards him so the back of her thighs slap against his hips. That is one tall bed, which could have been handy if they took advantage of it.
Well, and then to gain the upper hand in this little game, Diem does what she does best and begins to start shit as she thinks she's calling him out on his love. Quote, I think I see now why you two work so well together. She's miserable to be around and you love to be miserable. It's a perfect match. Okay, first of all, this line is hilarious, but Luther is just sitting here thinking, please stop associating me with Ileana. To keep her feelings pushed down in this very intimate setting with Luther, Diem makes a game out of this and is determined to win and get under his skin. Have we mentioned how competitive this girl is? So, he's pissed about her talking about Ileana and doesn't have a comeback. Diem 1, Luther 0.
Well, and let's also be real. Drunk Diem is practically cackling inside, believing that she's, winning the game. But Luther says, hold my descended beer.
And he makes Diem shut up about Ileana by beginning to give her a foot massage and knowing just where the right spot is on her foot to make her melt and stop focusing on someone not worth being on either of their minds right now.
Nice try, Diem, but I think Luther won that round.
Tie game now. Diem 1, Luther 1.
But pause, because he just dragged her up the bed to be against his thighs, and I cannot not think about this. Underwear! She has been thrown onto a bed, and I'm assuming, like many times when you're thrown onto a bed wearing a dress, your dress hikes itself up a little bit, and then she's dragged to the edge of it. Unless by some miracle the dress didn't hike up even more when she was dragged. There's no way her underwear is not on full display here. Now, I don't know why I'm so hung up on this. He's seen her in underwear before, and it's descended underwear that she's wearing. And this is not the I'm hanging around in my home undies. You all know what I'm talking about. She's wearing her let's go fuck around and find out undies, which you all also know what I'm talking about. Anyway, where was I? Ah, yes. With Diem's foot hooked over Luther's shoulder, his hands beginning at her thighs, deftly start to unwrap the straps of her shoes. Her shoes are the straps are all the way up to her thighs. Those would have taken me a year to put on, I swear to God. In true Luther fashion, he's slowly unwinding them, sliding the shoe off, and then massaging her foot and legs where the marks of the strappy heels dug into her. I've thought many times about whether it's Luther in this scene or a foot massage that I find so sexy, and you know what? Why choose?
I will be honest, I never thought a foot massage in a book could make me feel the things I feel when reading this. As far as I'm concerned, this is the masterclass in slow burn.
Well, and despite Diem trying to bait him with questions about Ileana that Lexi was mentioning earlier, Luther still pissed that he was put in this position and that Diem believes him to be attracted to Ileana, just continues putting that descended strength to work and puts her foot onto his chest. But Diem and Luther are still at their tie game. And I love the moment where he finds just the right spot and Diem interrupts her own Luther poking with a husky, mortifying moans as she fists the sheets, which causes Luther to smile darkly. With her foot propped up against his chest now, Luther holds out his hand and says, quote, the other one, with a dominance in his tone. He's playing the game right with her, goading her to pull away or wave the white flag or say there's nothing between us. Yeah, Diem likes that dominance voice though. Yeah, you do, girl. But she doesn't move. So he says, quote, don't make me ask again. I am sweating. Oh my God. And Diem raises the other leg, putting her foot immediately in his hand. And Luther, his eyes light up in excitement. And he says, good girl. This is an FFG first. We have a good girl and Nicole is happy.
Luther's good girl lines are enough all by themselves to put him in top tier book boyfriend status. Like, Holy moly. DM 1, Luther 10, readers 100.
Now, with both of her legs propped up against him, Diem finally acknowledges that her dress is so high and she squirms to push it down. Even I wasn't brave enough to be that on display. Okay, settle this argument with me in my brain right now. Is she wearing underwear, yes or no?
I think that there is a very special kind of descended underwear that we can only dream of that makes this make sense.
Like there's no sides to it. It's just like a little U-shape.
Something like that. Or, there's some light magic at work. I'm not saying that's actually the case. I don't know. But yes, I do think that there is some underwear here.
I hope so. That's a choice. Anyway, Luther does not drop his gaze to her underwear or lack of underwear. Instead, he holds her stare and reaches for her thighs where her dagger is. With the intimate moment heading towards her inner thighs, Diem sucks in a breath. Everything in Luther stills, and he tells her he can stop if she would like. I am a puddle for this man. Oh my God. They are playing a game of chicken with each other. He just said, good girl. Oh my God. But the moment there's even a question of Diem feeling uncomfortable, the act is dropped and concern is immediately on the forefront. It's like he respects her or something and wanting to make sure she's choosing this. But to Diem, that concern means feelings. And feelings mean that things are very real. And Luther is amazing and wonderful and that he cares for her. And this just needs to be a game for her. So she rolls her shoulders back and straightens her leg fully, forcing his hands to go up even higher. Game is back on. Luther unbuckles Diem's heavy dagger from her sheath, and after giving it a showy twirl, what a classic move, he places it on her stomach, the point stretching up so it's almost between her breaths. But no, Diem darling, no touchy. Luther wants it there. The feeling of the warm, heavy dagger feeling like a hand, Luther's hand, pressing her into the mattress, all while he takes off her shoe, much faster this time, and begins massaging her foot. And never once does he break her stare. I'm starting to notice a pattern with slow burns in these super high tension scene. It's constant eye contact. I can't think of a time in my life I've ever remained in eye contact with someone for this long. I would be like, oh my God, I feel like I'd be so uncomfortable, but like in the best way. With Luther coming up to 1,000 points, Diem needs to get her head back in the game. So she pokes a little fun at him for his words at dinner, telling him that in his vow to her, she was not expecting a foot massage. Take what you can get, girl. Henry ain't rubbing your feet. But Luther says as his lips brush her ankle and his palms rest low on her thighs, ever so slightly pulling them apart. Tell me then, my queen, how would you like me to serve you? Shall I get back down on my knees until I earn another kiss?
With the whole point system here, I'm just gonna say Nicole has reached 1,000,000 points. Luther gave her all of his points.
Oh my God. Diem, feeling like she's about to combust with one more touch, she says the words that, God, I wish she didn't. I don't think your lover would like that, Luther.
Ah, fudge. There's that, I need to put a barrier around us because this is getting all too real classic Diem shit. Because it's true. That's why she said it.
It's so true. And you know what? Fair, because he did say something that was like, whoa, that's like third base level shit right there. This is just an innocent foot massage. But Luther comes back with, neither would yours. Well, ice bucket challenge activated.
Game over.
Boo!
And not in the fun, Luther won with his sexy massage touch or delicious lines kind of way.
I think he won. My opinion.
Game over as in, shit, yeah, Diem shouldn't be doing this, and that was all just shoved in her face. Now, she absolutely prompted it, but all the same, it was just said to her. She's supposed to be engaged to her childhood best friend turned lover. She's not supposed to want to have anyone else touching her or calling her a good girl. She's not supposed to be having these feelings. Even going back to the first third of Spark, before Diem was truly attracted to Luther, she did not have anything close close to these emotions with Henry. She felt like his hand was sandpaper on her skin, for crying out loud. She was terrified of marrying Henry and knew in her heart it's not what she truly wanted, even though it's what she should want. Whenever she thinks about marrying Henry, Diem is filled with dread and her stomach physically hurts. She knows deep down she made a rash in the moment decision to accept Henry's marriage proposal, or like beg him for it, because her heart doesn't actually want to marry him, with Luther in the picture or no. But Luther is in the picture, and he is also becoming Diem's new constant, the one she can rely on to be there to support her, stand by her, no matter what, and put her first. Henry has made himself very clear the Guardians are his first priority, and while he loves the old version of Diem, he is using this new version for the sake of mortal kind. Later on in this book, Teller will say to Diem, Henry hasn't been here. Henry hasn't been here since you got the crown. And Diem knows that it's true, and she's trying to come up with excuses for Henry, and Teller's like, no, that is bullshit. Like, he is not here for you, period, because he does not want to be. So I know we should condemn this whole interaction with the foot massage and really everything that's going on between Diem and Luther, because Diem is committed to another man. But is she really? Yeah. Is he really committed to her? Is she emotionally cheating when she never has emotionally felt that way with Henry? The obvious answer is she should not have put herself in this position of being betrothed to Henry to begin with. But we already went over all the reasons why she begged him for that in the moment during episode 2. I'm not going to open up that can of worms again. So my takeaway here is there's subjectively a lot of gray space here, and it can also be viewed as black and white, right or wrong, and this would absolutely fall in the wrong category. But in this story setting, I'm strictly talking in this story setting, how can something that feels so right be wrong?
I think she should just hit Henry up and say, yo, this has been great, but you know what? No more. I'm good. And then
absolutely. She should say that.
Yeah, it's definitely in the gray, that's for sure. And I'm so happy nonetheless.
Well, and going back to the conversation we were having earlier about found family, and Diem is starting to find a place of belonging within this inner circle here. And yes, that does include Luther, but that is more of a platonic way of feeling like she can rely on people who are supporting her for who she is, no matter who she is. And she desperately needed that. That's what she was seeking with Henry when she did beg him to be her king consort. And so I think that the more she starts feeling the sense of belonging with her found family here, the less she is needing Henry. Now, I know I'm going to be singing a different tune later on in this book with the whole Vance situation, but it is very interesting. And of course, then there's all the Luther stuff here too. So yeah.
But with now this cold bucket of water and them being on opposite ends of the room, Diem having changed, they're supposed to be mad at each other. That's right. At the end of the day, Luther is confused. He feels like he's trying and trying so hard to win Diem's trust. And finally, he snapped. He sees her lean into Aean, someone who he knows his true motives of. And yes, he's besties with Taryn and he's going to hate him regardless. And yet, Diem seems to be giving Aean her loyalty despite him not having earned it. And then there's Eleanor, who on her first full interaction with Diem secured herself as an advisor. And he's over here like, hello, I've shown you my deepest secret, or at least one of them. I've protected you. I've shown you that I will do nothing but devote myself to you. And yet you still push me away. I agree with you. I don't blame him for being pissed.
But to absolutely nobody's surprise, Diem's pissed too. Luther encouraged her to come to the dinner, and then he abandoned her to the other cousins. Plus, he invited Iliana, as far as Diem knows right now, because she was played by Aean, as we talked about. And what's more, Luther is a mystery, and it's pissing Diem off because she needs clarity and upfront honesty now more than ever. She is surrounded by people using her, and here Luther is waving his arms and telling her over and over again that he is not using her, that his devotion to her is as deep as it comes. Nice. But then when she asks why, which yes is a fair question, and one readers have too at this point of the story, he clams up. And she can't trust anyone who clams up with her. She's so done with that. She was lied to her whole life. She needs to surround herself with people who are open and honest with her. Eleanor has proved herself to be that way with her. Diem thinks Aean is, but in hindsight we know that's not true. But the fact that she so easily believes him shows how much she is craving at least seemingly open honesty here. And no matter how many other secrets Luther shares, until he answers her pressing, "Why do you care about me so much?" she will not be able to fully accept him.
It's so ironic because he's waiting to tell her that because he believes she's not ready. And yet here she is begging him to tell her. It is definitely a catch-22.
I think too, Luther absolutely should be telling her. He has a lot of opportunities where, yes, I can understand, at least in the early days, why he held back.
Yeah.
And now she is practically throwing herself at him and being like, I need these answers from you. He can't give them to her. When it's like, no, I think you can.
Yeah, it's time, dude.
Or
Yeah.
at least like 80% of it.
Yeah.
At the very least here. Yeah.
After telling him that honesty and openness is what she desires most, and Luther still remains quiet, Diem's anger snaps. Quote, "Well, if that's true, then how pathetic indeed that your closest friends and family know less about you than someone you are nothing to." Ooh, listen, we've all had moments in our life where anger maybe got the better of us, and yet, Diem. Ma'am. Oh, ow. And now I am in no way going to excuse this anger. And Diem has never learned how to regulate her emotions. Her emotions were dulled by flame root when they needed to be learned how to be regulated. So now she has this tempest inside her, and when something comes out on top and spills over. And I also don't think the alcohol is helping either. Also, deep, deep in her mind, I think she believes Luther is the safe person for her to be mad at. Because if he has that unconditional loyalty towards her, she can say shit like this and he won't go anywhere. Which I'm not saying is a good quality. Please hear me on that. So it's almost like she can say whatever she wants to him and then he will still be at her side.
But Luther has his own boundaries. Good for you, sir.
Yes.
Diem just threw in his face that he means nothing to her. And while she will think later on that's not what she meant it by, we all know what that sounds like. And his efforts don't mean jack shit because he won't answer her most important question. That cuts so deep for Luther because we all know that Diem means everything to him. Since he was a boy and Lumnos saved him, gave a second chance for him to devote himself to the Great-Eyed Queen, his life's purpose has been to pledge loyalty and his services to this queen. Here Diem is the Great-Eyed Queen, and she is everything he ever could have hoped for and imagined. And yet she still seems to let everyone in but him, when he's the one who's done more than anyone else to prove his worth and dedication to her, both when he has known her and way beforehand as well. He holds his ground and gives Diem some bitter truths. Diem's family lied to her all her life, which she knows as much as she considers her family to be so much better than the Descended. And yeah, drugging your daughter and gaslighting her to believe she's diseased is really bad. But I would also say killing the mortal mother of your son and almost killing him in the process is worse.
Yeah.
But anyway, Luther knows the truth about the lure of power the crown has. Everyone just wants something from you and will use you to get it, including the mortals, especially Henry. Now, Luther may be under the impression that Henry wants to be king for his own personal gain, and we know better because we've talked to Penn that it's for the mortals. But using Diem because she now has a crown for especially Henry, as well as probably other mortals later on, it is absolutely still applicable. And deep down, Diem knows it, which only causes her to lash out more. But Luther won't apologize for keeping her safe, because his calling comes from a higher authority than even her, Blessed Mother Lumnos herself. So take that, Diem Bellator.
What shocks me at the end of the scene is that when they are firmly in that heavy breathing pause during a fight moment, Diem arches her body against his hands are framing her face at this point, and she leans into him for a kiss. She's hyped up on their tug-of-war, their passion, the intensity of the foot rub, the alcohol, the bad decisions, and she is so ready to give in. And I am so proud of Luther for pulling away and leaving the room. She just said that he was nothing to her, and even though she knows she's lying, that still cuts so deep. So good for you, Luther. Leave. Come back and kiss her when it's better. The next day, it's ball time, everybody. And while the actual ball will have to wait until next episode, the practice starts now, led by balls expert Lily. Nope, that felt wrong. Who wants Lily to be his balls expert, though? It's Teller, who is also here helping Diem crash study for the different houses and realms.
I love how he's already using his smarts to advise his sister.
After some attempts at dancing, Diem sits out to study, allowing for Teller to take her place and dance with Lily. Oh, it's so sweet. Their budding romance, it got me thinking, how do you think it started romancing? Like, what was their meet cute? And this was such a hard-hitting question that I needed to know the answer to that we asked Penn. So here's what she said.
How did Lily and Teller meet? What was their first interaction like? So I actually think about this a lot. I think that when Teller arrived to the Descended school for the first time, he definitely had a rough go of it. The Descended distrust the mortals just as much as the mortals distrust the Descended. They don't really like to mix. The Descended definitely are suspicious of mortals being rebels or, being up to no good. And so I think even if the Descended even if there were ones who didn't want to be outwardly mean to him, they still wouldn't be nice to him because that would be seen as kind of cozying up with the enemy. So I imagine it was probably a really lonely first few weeks where nobody would talk to him. Some of the Descended, certainly some of the Hanovers, were probably absolutely awful to him and bullied him. And I think Lily probably saw this and recognized that she is in a special position as the only princess. And she, everybody wants to be her friend because she's a royal and her brother is probably going to be king. So they certainly don't want to get on his bad side. So everybody, of course, is going to suck up to Lily and, never cross her. So I think she realized, okay, if I'm nice to this boy, everybody else will be too. I also think she probably thought he was really cute and that made her interested. And I think she also respected how hard he studied. If he didn't have friends at the school, what else is he going to do except study really hard and learn as much as he can? And I think Lily really respects that. She's certainly seen a great work ethic in her brother, and I think she probably really, really respected that in Teller as well, and really gravitated towards him naturally. And so I imagine their first interaction was him sitting alone at lunch at his own table in this big, grand, Descended cafeteria. And she went up to him and sat with him and just had a conversation with him. And from that point on, probably a lot of the bullying of him stopped, even though maybe everybody wasn't nice. They at least left him alone because he was kind of under Lily's protection. And so I imagine that blossomed into a friendship that became something a lot more.
Entering the dungeon party is none other than Luther Corbois. And kids, it's time for you to leave so Diem can practice her magic. She's doomed at dancing anyway. So with a hug for Lily and a short snarl towards Teller, you would do this shit. I could see you doing this.
I would totally do this.
Causing Teller to bolt towards the exit. Diem and Luther are left alone.
Luther waves the white flag, and these two make up from their fight last night, which brings us to the conversation about scars. I know we skipped over this when we covered the dinner party or earlier, but there was an important conversation between the cousins about scars and how unbecoming it is that their queen has them. Because you see, Descended look down on scars. They are a sign of imperfection and weakness. When Descended grow into their powers, which includes their quick healing abilities around puberty, they go to the healers and Fortos to remove any scars they got in childhood. Looking perfect and flawless is essential to the Descended, and scars equal flaws and imperfections. They're especially unseemly for a queen, who needs to be viewed as the most flawless, the most powerful, the most perfect to be taken seriously.
And then there's the step further, which is Ileana's point of view on scars, and I'm assuming the other members of House Hanover. If the crown of Lumnos has scars, aka if they don't appear that otherworldly and perfect, how on earth will the mortals or the other realms fear them? This is sad, unsurprisingly, that they would be so focused on the perfection so that they could hold it over someone else, to make someone else feel inferior for being flawed. Fuck you, Ileana.
It's one more way for the Descended to consider themselves superior to mortals. They are flawless, while mortals are flawed. But Diem has a different perspective of scars. She thinks perfection is boring. Remember back in Spark, when she was looking at Henry's face and loved his imperfections? She believes scars tell a story of strength, perseverance, and uniqueness. Meanwhile, the Descended may be flawless, but it also makes them blend in with each other, and she finds that rather sad. They all have to stand out from each other with their attire and their fashion, not with their actual looks, because they all kind of blend in together as these flawless, perfect people. These stark differences of opinion about scars is one more way of highlighting just how different the Descended mortal ways of life are. Mortals have to fight for survival every day, and their scars represent that they come out stronger because of their survival. And Diem's scars are memories. Even if getting the scar was a bad experience, time has a way of erasing the pain and only leaving behind laughter and happiness that she did come out stronger.
So taking off her tunic, Diem begins to show and tell.
Hello.
Along her hip is a puckered line where her and Teller believed themselves to be too grown up for wooden sparring swords and decided to use blades instead. Then she points to her shoulder blade, where she challenged the boys in her class to a race, and just as she was about to win, one tried to trip her, so she tackled him. This sounds like something you would do, Lexi. I feel like you, not tackled, didn't you have a jalapeno eating contest?
Yes. I was in middle school. I don't remember which year. And I had a jalapeno eating contest with the boys, and I won. But so no one would see me puke, I ran out of the classroom, and I didn't make it to the bathroom, so I ran into a different classroom, and it was that I went in there, and I had some explaining to do.
But you won.
I won!
Then on Diem's rib cage, she has a scar from being bucked off a horse. Then on her shin, she has a scar from a rusty chain catching her while swimming. Ouch. I hope she had her tetanus shot. And last but not least, on her forearm, going up to her elbow, from a boy who was bullying Teller in school, and Diem tricked him into falling into mud in front of the whole school. It's mean. But then he and his friends came after her in revenge and beat her bloody on her walk home. Fuck you, boys. While Luther is listening, his stare is locked on the shirt in her hands. And Diem thinks it's him, being all self-conscious that he's seeing her body on display, which might I point you to last night, sir. She even jokes and reminds him that he's seen her in much less. To which he says, quote, impossible to forget. But I think he's more staring at the shirt shocked because someone else is showing their scars so willy-nilly. That is, though, until the last story where she talks about being beat up and he basically promises to murder the boys who ambushed her. Luther has spent his whole life since his healing abilities kicked in, and he had the option to heal away his scar, feeling like he was tainted, unworthy, defective, inferior. Did he put on a face of boredom and indifference like he does when Ileana is being a monster at dinner? Yes, he does. But inside, he's feeling like he's had to justify this decision to keep these marks time and time again. He was even made to believe that he'd end up with a queen consort who made him swear, and you know how big of a deal that is for Luther, that he would have his scars removed after he became king. I can't even begin to imagine what this conversation was like with Ileana and Luther, where she got him to swear this to her. I can't stand this woman.
I also wonder if he kind of waved her off the topic so many times that she took that as him swearing. And it's more of her putting on a show that Luther did swear he would remove them, when in actuality, he didn't. He was just a passenger on that conversation, and she had her own takeaways from it. Or maybe he did swear only because he knew he was never going to become king.
I could see it even being a little bit of both. He kind of passed it off, but knowing internally that seemed like an acceptance of it.
But really laying down the law that no, or pushing back at her.
Yeah.
He was just this fight's not worth it because I'm not going to become king anyway.
Exactly, yes. Yeah. Then to see another woman, the woman of his visions that he's promised basically his whole life to.
The woman of his dreams.
The woman of literally his
literally.
dreams. Showing off her scars, praising all scars, not as a sign of weakness or imperfection or taintedness, but instead as strength, as celebrating that imperfection, and as a life fully lived. I can only imagine what this must feel like for him. He's never been around someone with this viewpoint. Think about a time in your life where you felt so seen, and it wasn't for something you did or for something that someone expected something of you, but instead for something where you almost felt like a person was seeing into your soul, your truest version of yourself. Luther has spent his whole life not feeling seen, and here he is with Diem, a woman who is not only seeing him, all of him, but most importantly, the imperfect part of him that he forever thought he was going to be judged unworthy by others for. And to hear her feel like he was made brave to keep this scar, Luther, he's feeling accepted, he's feeling seen for who he is, holy scar and all.
Diem showed him her scars, so now it's time for Luther to show Diem his scars. But exactly like Nicole's saying, he feels seen, and I bet this is such a big deal for him to show her another secret of his, as nervous as he may be to do so. Diem recognizes how big of a moment this is, and that's why she pushes him a little bit when he is so hesitant at first. He's not ready to tell her what happened yet, but he's okay to show her what is beneath his clothing. Yeah, he is ready for that. This is an important moment for him to feel seen, where he doesn't have to hide his choice to keep his scar. While Diem may have him on number, Luther's got her on size.
Yeah, he does.
Because the cruel slash that cuts from his throat to his hip bone, so all the way down his chest, is at least an inch wide along the center line, with countless jagged tributaries webbing across his torso. Diem thinks it looks like a bolt of lightning exploded from within him and shredded his skin to tatters. And she recognizes that an injury like this could not possibly have been an accident. She has never seen anything like this before, and she was a healer, so she's seen some shit.
And it would not be me if I did not highlight Diem saying, quote, "Who did this to you?" The fact that we get a good girl and a who did this to you in the same episode, the old gods are good to me. I love it. And I love that the who did this to you is from Diem to Luther.
Later on, we will discuss the story about what exactly did happen. But right now, Luther won't tell her who did this to him as his way of protecting her. Because I think if he said that it was Remus, it would change everything for Diem with how she handles herself around Remus. And it might even change whether she's willing to play nice with House Corbois. Only after her coronation and everything settles, with her seated in power and there to rule, will Luther think it's safe to tell her. In other words, when it doesn't matter what it's like with Remus, Luther knows Diem needs his father as an ally right now. And once his father is not needed by Diem's side anymore after she's coronated, then Luther will tell her. Which could likely lead to Remus's demise, with the way Diem wants to punish whoever did this to him.
But show and tell is over, and it's time for a magic lesson.
Huzzah!
Meanwhile, I'm like, take your shirts off again.
You've had plenty this episode. Okay.
That's fair. Starting with what's the easiest way to tap into your magic? Emotions is the answer, and it's Diem's arch nemesis. Normally, when the godhood first manifests, it's because emotions were high due to them feeling angry or threatened, and because the godhood feeds off their emotions, and it goes, "Hello, I'm here." Don't mistake the godhood, though, for a piece of Mother Lumnos herself. While the kindred were gods to the descended, the kindred had deities on their own home world. We kind of talked about this earlier, and they brought a piece of that divine power with them when they came to Amarian. And the godhood is a piece of that divine power passed through all descended. Pause. Add this to the list of things I need to know more about and burn. This has to come more into play, right?
Yeah, I'm absolutely convinced. Absolutely. Yes. Well, and also Penn has told us that she was like, it's going to be really hard to correctly theorize because there is a big piece of the puzzle that is missing when it comes to this curse and all the mystery, right? And I think all of this about the kindred origins and their home world and their gods, I think that might be part of that big piece of the puzzle.
Yes. Absolutely. The homeworld specifically, because that has to something happen.
Well, remember Montios's note that was like,
yes!
About their homeworld and how their youngest brother Omnos actually liked what was happening over there, and that scared his older siblings because they did not like what was happening. I think that was what we're going to find out more about, maybe. Yeah.
I'm so excited.
So now with this Godhood 101 lesson, time to put it into action. But as good-hearted as these descended are, none of them can possibly understand where Diem is coming from and why it's so difficult for her to embrace her magic and connect with her godhood. It's second nature for her peers here, and they've only ever known being descended. She is very new at this, and specifically, Luther is asking her to tap into her emotions like she did the other night when she unleashed. But as proud as he is of the magic that she's already proven to have, that was the worst night of Diem's life. It was the night that her reality came crashing down. And now every time she feels her magic stir, she's reminded of the loss that it inevitably brings, with her outliving all the mortals she loves. But as much as she repels her magic and wants to keep it at arm's distance to emotionally protect herself, Diem also logically knows she has to master her magic before the challenging, or she's likely dead. And if she's dead, she'll lose all those she loves a lot sooner, like in a matter of a few weeks. That's some good perspective, Diem. Except, as we'll learn at the top of chapter 24, this mindset won't work. Because no matter how much Taryn, Alix, and Luther try to make her unleash her emotions and therefore her magic, Diem can't deliver because she knows in her heart she's not ready to face her emotions and she's scared to. She's keeping her godhood at arm's distance while trying to complete the mechanics of conjuring it. But it comes down to the fact her heart is not in it yet. All right, friends, in this magic fueled segment of the episode, let's tap into our Umbros magic and turn our full attention to important foreshadowing moments for the rest of this book and series, including speculations for Book 4, Burn of the Everflame.
I feel like the previous segment was as long as King Ulther's funeral is where I feel like this was.
I wonder why.
Taryn says to Diem when asking her how it feels to be sitting between himself and Luther that, usually there's less of the crowd. Well, unless, quote, having an audience is your thing. In the Sofos library, Diem will think that there is an audience. And then when Luther tells her there isn't, she can't decide if she's disappointed or happy about it. Exhibitionism might just be a thing for our fair Diem. I can't wait.
Whatever floats her boat. Good for her.
Yeah, we won't yuck your yum.
Diem has a sinking feeling that she just made a very grave mistake with taunting Gareth, and now he's officially an enemy. Nicole, remember how Penn told us the answer to who kills Andrei is very clear, at least to her, in Glow? I'm starting to lean more and more toward it being Gareth. Now, we also have not talked about the Ascension Ball and House Bennett next episode, but in this moment here, this could be a big indicator to Diem making a big mistake with her now as his target. Luther says that Gareth won't attack him without his father's permission, but I could see Remus giving permission for Gareth to orchestrate this because it benefits Remus by Diem losing her father and becoming a shell of herself, so then Remus can come in and command the meetings.
Oh, I hate how much that makes sense. Remus mentions how the arena for the funeral has a magical barrier surrounding it, protecting the crowd. During the challenging, Luther will remind Diem of this very fact before he goes back to the royal box by shooting a shadow at it, demonstrating how it does not hurt the crowd, causing her and myself to utterly melt at how much he knows her heart.
Andrei says, quote, "You're my little girl. You always will be, whether you're descended or mortal or anything else you say." That's right here. The foreshadow is right here.
I did not even think of that. Oh my God, that's so good.
Like, obviously, Andrei does not know.
No.
But there are little foreshadowing nuggets throughout this series that Diem is not who everybody thinks she is, obviously.
When Andrei talks about the Igneos Grivern and how he's a nasty brute, quote, "Sarai let out the faintest whine, and an odd pulse of emotion I didn't understand came across the bond she and I shared. This is because Sarai and Tybalt were in a Griverns relationship when they followed their kindred into this world, and with Forging Spell, they were separated." God, I cannot wait for them to be reunited. Luther mentions how both him and Diem could use some training on the light magic that Alix uses. Well, in the first 3 chapters of Burn, we know that Luther has been practicing with Teller as his sharp eye for errors, which brings me to highlighting just how far Teller and Luther's relationship has come. In this stretch, Luther snarls at Teller, and Teller is terrified at the intimidating older brother of Lily. But in the first 3 chapters of Burn, we see them work together and really view each other as confidants and equals.
Diem thinks about how teasing Aean is fair game for blackmailing her into taking him as her escort to the Ascension Ball. Right before they do go to the Ascension Ball together, he seems disgusted by the possibility that she thinks that he blackmailed her and says that if that's what she thinks this is, then he's not interested in being by her side of the ball. Aean will say that Diem bringing him to the ball was Luther's idea because it helps keep her betrothed mortal away from the palace. After all, Luther wants to keep Diem under his control and keep the mortal away from her. So question, knowing what we know about Aean purposefully lying at the dinner party about Luther and playing Diem and all of that, did he actually blackmail her about the escort?
Yes.
Or did he not?
He is lying in that scene 100%. Like, there is no way Luther had the idea of Aean taking her. No.
Yeah, I agree, because Aean will immediately take the opportunity after she says this to then demonize Luther when blackmailing comes up. So Diem thinks Aean is actually the good guy. Ugh. I'm disliking Aean more and more in this deep dive. I sincerely apologize to everyone when I said nice things about him in the first few episodes. Watch me get an egg on my face, though, with his redemption arc now in Burn.
Maybe that'll be one of our bets. Aean gets a redemption arc.
Oh, that's absolutely. Like,
yes.
I need to keep on deep diving and parse through more before I get a very clear thoughts about him. But, yeah.
Oh, dear. At the dinner, one of the cousins, Velis, says about Diem and Luther, quote, think of the powerful children they would produce. This brings up a question. We assume that half-mortals are more powerful than purebred descendant. We've talked about that endlessly on the show.
At least some of them, yeah.
At least most. I'll say some to most of them. What would a child of two half-mortals be then?
I really hope we'll find out in the epilogue.
Yeah.
Like, please let these two live happily ever after.
You
and
said
if
they were meet at the gates.
That doesn't mean they don't get their happily ever after. Maybe one of them dies in old age, and then the other one dies, like,
in older age.
An older age, yeah. And then old people together, they are reunited to live out the rest of their days together.
How
That's
long
what
do you
I
think
meant.
Burn's gonna be, woman?
I'm talking about an epilogue here. I just want to see an epilogue, if they do choose to have children, where we get like that little glimpse into the future. I also realize that, and this is spoilers for Hunger Games in 3, 2, 1. Hunger Games has my favorite epilogue of all time. Like, I have not stopped thinking about it since I read it, 2-3 decades ago. And now I just want every epilogue to be like that.
Now it is time to enter the Sofos library, where each episode, Lexi will guide us through a world-building topic to help us deepen our understanding of this world, its magic, and specifically, its creatures.
Today's Sofos library topic is Griverns. Sarai was just wonderful in this stretch of chapters. I mean, she's always wonderful, do not get me wrong, but she was especially fantastic here. So we gotta shine the light on these Griverns, these magnificent creatures in this world. So first up, what are Griverns? Griverns are fire-breathing, immortal creatures with the spiked, scaled head of a sea dragon, the wings and front talons of an eagle, and the body of a lion. They are large, beautiful, and fearsome creatures who can fly and carry multiple people on their backs. I still don't know exactly how that works, but I'm just going to trust the process. The color of their fire corresponds to their kindred's color. Like Sarai breathes the pale blue flames because blue is the color for the Luminous Descended. Stories of these Griverns are told in schools, and their likeness is stitched and carved in various materials around the realms. They came to Amarian with the kindred when they arrived in the mortal realm many millennia ago from their home realm. Each of the 9 kindred siblings brought their Grivern with them as their companion and guardian. At the foraging, the kindred bound their beasts to an eternity of service to the crowns of each realm. So these Grivern are bound to their realm's crown and must protect them at all costs and obey their every command long after the kindred themselves are gone. During the Blood War, the Fortos Grivern, a male named Baldrum, and the Montios Grivern, a female named Rymari, were killed by mortal rebels. Rymari was the oldest of the Griverns. She was pure white from tongue to tail with scales like opals. It is extremely difficult to kill a Grivern, and the rebels in the Blood War had godstone bolts to shoot into the sky and take down a Grivern. The Guardians in the present day also have a very limited supply of these bolts left from the Blood War. Better not see that hurt any of our favorite Griverns.
I was about
Burn.
to ask, do we think we're losing a Grivern?
Yes.
I think so too.
I don't think it will be Sarai, though. I could see the Sofos Griver
Okay, Vexus.
All right, well, let me keep on going about
Okay.
these remaining living Griverns that we have. Of course, we have the Lumnos Griverns, Sarai in all of her glory. She is a female. She has iridescent scales, a rainbow sheen like oil puddles, golden eyes, and tuft of black fur on the end of her tail. She is devoted to Diem, and we love her. She isn't only Diem's bonded, but they really have such a wonderful kinship here. Sarai is playful and like a mother hen for Diem, and she also has a feisty personality. Then we have the Fanos Grivern, Rosha, who is also a female. Then we have the Arboros Grivern, Onar, who is a female as well. The Igneos Grivern, Tybalt, who we've talked about. He is Sarai's beau, who she's been separated from for millennia. He's nearly twice the size of Sarai, with golden feathers and shimmering tan scales. A line of horns run up his snout and down his neck. He is known for being mean and vicious, but we also have to wonder if that's because Tybalt is bound to such horrible Igneos crowns. He is mistreated, that's an understatement, by the current Igneos king. The Umbros Grivern is named Cyrene, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, who is a female. The Miros Grivern is Arilok, who is a male. The Sofos Grivern, Vexus, is also a male, and he is plump and petite and accustomed to a life of spoiled leisure. Then we have the 10th kindred Omnosis Grivern, Zephyrus, who we are assuming is male, though I cannot find confirmation of this. He has a horned reptilian head, sprawling red-tipped wings, and a hulking leonine body with fur so dark it's nearly black. And it would seem that this Griverns is as nasty-tempered as his crown, Ophiuchi. Griverns are incredibly intelligent, and each has their own unique personalities, mind, and opinions. For instance, we learn from Luther that Sarai can't be used during battle training because she can sense the intentions of the guards, so mock battles don't interest her. She'd rather have a snack and take a nap than bother with opponents that she knows don't mean her any harm. That's pish-posh. Why would I do that? These Griverns are magic-bound to the crown and obey only them. They have both a mental connection through this bond and a physical connection, meaning a Grivern won't tolerate being separated from their crown for too long. If it gets to the point where a Grivern decides it's been long enough, they will track their crown down using scent and following the call of the crown's power. Due to their intelligence, this forced loyalty can leave the Griverns wary that they might be forced into service to a stranger whose goals they might not share. Grivern tend to form, but not always, a deep connection to their crown, even being able to sense the next crown before the current crown has fully passed. The crown can sense the Griverns' emotions and intentions, and vice versa. Diem can't literally talk to Sarai per se, but they absolutely communicate very well in their own bonded way. So also, you all know that Nicole and I have been very back and forth whether Diem is using her Fanos magic to communicate with Sarai, and that's might be a contributing factor to why their bond seems so much deeper. Of course, they also just really like each other. And we have finally asked Penn to settle the debate once and for all. Everybody take a listen.
Does Diem use her Fanos magic to communicate with Sarai, or is she relying entirely on the bond they have? I think it's a little bit of both. So as we see in Spark, before Diem has the crown, she still kind of senses something from Sarai, and there's definitely a pull that brings them together. And I think that's probably the Fanos magic at work, sensing that this Griverns has something that they want to tell her or that they want to know from her. But of course, whatever Sarai knows, she's not going to say yet at that time because she doesn't know who this person is or whether she can trust them yet. But then, of course, when she gets the crown, even the crowns that don't have Fanos magic can communicate with their Griverns. So it's a little bit of both. But it is a really interesting question, isn't it? Gives you some things to think about.
I feel both vindicated and not vindicated at
We
the
were
same
both
time.
right. You were absolutely right about Spark. I will give you that. I was very adamant that was not correct. So I apologize. You were right there.
Yay!
Griverns are also known to feel and feed off the emotions and thoughts of their crown, like, we've all been saying here. While Griverns are loyal to their crowns, they can still act of their own will. If their crown fears someone or even dislikes them strongly, the Griverns will take that person's life in an effort to please the crown. So let's go through the Griverns' strengths and weaknesses. They are incredibly powerful physically. I've already mentioned their intelligence, and their senses are even more heightened than that of the descendant. Like, for instance, Sarai can hear Diem when nobody else would be able to, not even a descended. We also can't forget about their fire. They are fire-breathing creatures. They are unbeatable by almost any weapon and nearly impossible to kill. Like I was saying there and about the Blood War, there are only 3 known ways to kill a Grivern: touching the soil on Kirill, Godstone to the heart, like we were talking about then with the Blood War and all of that, with the Godstone bolts, and beheading. And unfortunately, that's where I end this Sofos library. I apologize. I did not happy sandwich that. So anyway, Griverns are amazing. They are magnificent creatures, and we especially love Sarai.
Let's close out this episode with skipping around the apple orchard and discuss our favorite moments from this stretch of chapters. I've got a lot of them. Surprisingly, I talked a lot. I don't know why I find this oh so satisfying, but Ulther's deathbed being replaced, I didn't realize I needed that confirmation, but I realized after I read this how important that is to me.
I definitely needed that confirmation. I would have been just like Diem, where it's like, I don't want to go in there. Diem's shifting perspective of the late King Ulther and how she sets the final log onto the pyre and closes her eyes to offer up a prayer for Ulther's soul. She's not personally religious, but it's a kind gesture as she's beginning to understand he might have been the only reason the mortals' conditions weren't worse, which is really saying something. When previously, he was the symbol to Diem of the mortals' terrible oppression. Quote, whatever kind of queen I turned out to be, I hoped that someday someone would do the same for me. I just find this line so touching and just so on brand for Diem. Yeah. All Diem or any of us hope is that someone offers a kind gesture equivalent to our personal version of this whenever we pass.
Yeah, like till the sweat drops down my balls, TJ playing for a day straight. Cocky Sarai is just incredible. She's damn right she would be an amazing advisor. If only Diem was fully tapped into her Phanos magic, she would be able to have that pretty much that level of advisor relationship with her.
Well, hold on, because Penn was kind of teasing that she's only scratching the surface. And so I'm going to really keep an eye out when we're deep diving Heat to see if there is some more Phanos magic between the relationship, and if not yet, then maybe we'll get something in Burn.
Oh, I can only hope. But what's better than cocky Sarai? It is Mother Hen Sarai,
who after the funeral tugs a blanket over Diem and puts a wing over her body to try and warm it. Just, my mama heart. I love you so much, Sarai.
Every moment of Luther touching Diem's exposed back, especially when it's followed by a sharp intake of breath. I love tension. God, I love smut. Don't get me wrong. I enjoy the spice, but tension, I love more. It makes me so happy. Taryn and Diem's budding friendship at the funeral is one of my favorite things about this scene. Most of all because it began with him asking how it feels to be sandwiched between 2 handsome single Corbois princes. He's such a good wingman.
He's also like, he's single, Diem.
I know, right?
Single, I promise. Taryn is the perfect friend Diem needs and a true challenger in the most lovable way with how they word spar with each other. I love when he says, could throw some logs on you and make it a 2-for-1 event, and it has the Corbois family members just gasping in horror, and Diem just fucking loves it, even though they're talking about her death. Taryn treats her like an equal, not a queen or descendant or mortal or anything else, simply as another person, and she just needs that so badly right now.
The odd moments of the funeral are spectacular. From Raphael's poem about his mate in the bedroom, which I love that it's Luther who's having to read this into the mic.
Oh my god, you're right!
If I was Diem, I'd be like, nobody speak to me right now. I'm listening to every word he's saying. Then there's also the orchestra playing Ulther's favorite song and how it was so awkward a piece that Diem couldn't tell if they were all playing at the same time. I just love the idea that Luther was actually just trolling everyone into saying that this was his favorite piece, knowing that they would play it at his funeral. And he's just up in the conference call in the clouds, and he's just with the kindred laughing at that.
And Raphael! Don't forget he's also Raphael! Wait, I love this so much.
Like, I enjoy thinking that Ulther was just clowning everyone for the most part. Then there's Eleanor thinking that when Diem says she's already spoken for, she says, quote, who? Aean? Blessed kindred, he moves fast. What a reputation this dude has. But also, Now begins my list of times I thought Eleanor was evil from this episode that we haven't mentioned already. How she immediately thinks it was Aean who wormed his way into Diem's side could be a connection into her and Aean working together. Also, how Diem specifically mentioned how Eleanor and Aean were a great pair at the cousins' dinner. They just keep getting put in the same box together. And it started as a fun theory, but now I'm like kind of jumping on this train.
I think that's a fun theory now that I used to believe too.
Now that Taran is finally in our story, we get to pull out some of our favorite lines from him from this stretch of chapters. Starting off with calling through the door, quote, "Hey Diem, is Luther in there? Are you two doing something naughty?" Best wingman, not at all subtle.
This would be me.
This has been you.
I am not very subtle by any means. Also, when he's like, "Woo, we're doing this shirtless,"
I know.
and he just immediately takes his shirt off.
Yes. And how him and Eleanor apparently had a bet going on when they were entering Diem's room, and they were trying to figure out who won. I guarantee you that Taran's answer was that Diem and Luther was fucking.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Or at minimum doing something naughty. And so he was like, added that content. It was like, "Hey, are you doing exactly what I hoped you were doing to win this bet?" Which, okay, question for you. Would you put foot massage under something naughty? I would think so too, because Luther's foot massages might as well be third base.
Exactly. I mean, Diem is fisting the sheets. That's all I need to hear.
True.
Then there's Taran saying how Sarai loves his hugs, and no one knows if Sarai's snapping of her jaws was a threat or an agreement to that statement.
I would counter that Diem could be able to know that.
I know!
Whatever.
God damn it!
One more Taran thing is when they are starting to have their magic lesson, and she kind of uses like being a queen, because that, again, is one of her only ways of having anything over these descended. And he's like, "Nah, there is no rank in magic lessons." And I just love that.
Taran would be a really good member of your in-laws. Like, he gives me major Lexi's in-laws energy.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why I fit in so well with that
I know.
family. When we see Alix's illumination magic, Diem says, "Holy shit!" and her invisible father chastises her for language. I just love these little moments where she's still just someone's daughter and not the crown. Then when he's like, "Don't forget you're a Bellator," and how Luther helps Diem stay anchored in who she is and where she comes from throughout the story. Her identity as being a Bellator is so, so important to her. And on the same note about Alix's magic, Diem says it's the most impressive thing she's ever seen. And Sarai is like, "Excuse me." So Diem amends, "The second most impressive thing I've seen. Sarai, you are the best."
Luther saying that he's changed his mind. Diem shouldn't come to dinner. Quote, "You getting to know any more cousins is not going to end well for me." Humorous Luther Corbois is my undoing, I swear to God. But not as much as foot massage Luther, as I went into great detail on. But what I did not mention earlier is when Diem is lamenting about how it takes her a long time to get this presentable, all the while trying to take a diamond clip out of her hair, Luther comes over, bats her hand away, untangles her hair, and says, quote, "No, it doesn't." While I'm on favorite Luther lines, quote, "You threatened to cut off my hand within minutes of meeting me. You attacked the royal guard several times. You snuck into the palace alone. You ran into a burning, collapsing building, all while you apparently believed yourself to be mortal. With respect, my queen, your survival instincts are shit." He's got a point. That's what I'm saying. I love that drunk Diem was this close to admitting that she spent the night in Luther's bedroom, but sadly she hadn't reached that level of shit starting. Also, shit starting? Great phrase.
The continued budding romance between Teller and Lily just melts our hearts. The way they dance together and how Teller clings to Lily with an eager tenderness, even as he tries to keep a respectful distance. Like, he's trying so hard to be just a good boy, and he absolutely is, and he just has such a big crush on her, and I love them. And so does Diem, who loves witnessing this innocent love because it's like a balm to her own struggling heart. Neither of these two teenagers care about bloodlines or power. They offer each other themselves, and they offer each other kindness, and they gravitate toward one another. Diem believes in love, and she loves seeing it grow, even if it means no matter what, it'll end in sadness.
And last but not least, Teller poking Diem, saying that she doesn't need to worry about the challenging because Diem will kill everyone with her dancing. Followed by this little detail of Diem swiping at her brother and him deftly darting out of reach. Like, I love that little reminder to us readers that Teller's a trained fighter like Diem. I love Teller on my first series of this series. Deep Dive Teller is really becoming one of my favorite characters.
Oh, hands down. Absolutely. Yeah. Woo! We did it, everybody! Thank you so much for listening to this third episode of our Glow of the Everflame Deep Dive.
We will be continuing next Monday with Glow of the Everflame Episode 4, Chapters 24 through 28. It's ball time! Ball time!
You hear that, balls expert Amen? It's your time to shine!
How many balls expert jokes do you think we're going to make next episode?
I don't know, but I accept the challenge. We would love to give the biggest warm welcome to our newest Crowns Council members.
Thank you so much for joining Jesse and Mackenzie. Welcome.
Yay!
We appreciate you so much.
Oh, and thank you so much again for supporting the show, for being part of this community. We appreciate you so much. And friends, if you're like, hey, I want my name shouted out on the podcast and to be showered with all the love and attention too, please be sure to join our fan club at fantasyfangirls.com/fan club. The link is in the show notes.
Also, thank you so much to our Sofos scholar, aka our new full-time content researcher. Yay, Brooke! We are so happy to have you here. And of course, our executive producer, aka our sanity manager, Hayden.
We are very active on social media with weekly trivia, games, and so much more. So please be sure to follow us on Instagram and/or TikTok at Fantasy Fangirls Pod. And if you're watching this on YouTube or want to watch on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button to keep following along. We appreciate it so much.
Do you want to watch me just drool into the microphone for 3 hours? This is a great episode to watch on YouTube. While you're also clicking buttons, go ahead and rate and review the show. I actually took a moment the other day and read some Apple reviews, and I was like almost in tears. I was so incredibly blown away by y'all's kindness and words, and it just means so much. Thank you to everyone who's done it already. And if you haven't, it takes 2-3 seconds of your day, and it's so helpful for not only this show, but for any podcast that you listen to. And last but not least, share this episode with your fellow Everflame friends. If the foot massage changed your brain chemistry like it did mine, this is a great episode to send to your friends who you were group texting during that scene.
All right, everybody. Thank you again so much. We will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye. He turns his lips softly to her ear, and with a low, rough voice, he says, quote, "Something I cannot have." I can't do that. That was terrible. I'm doing that again. After Luther leaves for the podium again, Eleanor loves the hot... I almost read hot dogs. Eleanor loves the hot goss.